I woke up this morning wondering what I would do if I could separate the chaff from the wheat of Western masculinity. How would I begin to even sort these men out that might or might not be supportive of secular Quranism? I know that most men are cowards, so I can't, expect them to support secular Quranism without preparing them for it first. So I know that even Muslims are afraid of Islamophobes. I think one of the reasons why most Muslims won't support secular Quranism is because they don't want to stand up from the crowd. They don't think they're qualified. They're basically waiting for the green light to show that it's okay for them to support secular Quranism. And so far, the more well-known Muslim activists are not engaging. I suppose it's because they don't, they don't want to give me the oxygen of publicity, because they think, oh, how dare she? She's not even Muslim. She can't use our Quran. We won't let her. And if she tries, we won't cooperate with her. So basically that's their tack. And also, even the ones who say, well, it's an idea, it could, but I dare not talk about it on my channel because, well, I don't want to be attacked by the donkeys who won't be able to get in and who will instinctively hate it, and so they don't quite dare. So I can't, divide men between, do you support secular Quranism or don't you? I would have to find a way at finally arriving at my target group through asking other questions. And this would be, do you believe in God or not? So it would be kind of like a flow chart. And then it would be, is it the Abrahamic God you believe in? And then you'd have to wait for their answer and then deal with them accordingly. So if somebody answered if they were a Jew, I'd ask them if they were observant or non-observant. And I would leave aside the non-observant Jews for the moment. If they said they were Christian, I would ask them if they felt any anxiety or distress about Christianity being idolatry and blasphemy. And some might say, no, I don't care. I never really believed in it, but I just went along for the show. Or they could say, yes, I am concerned. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. And then I could say, well, if you really wanted to worship God, the Abrahamic God, you could, if you wish to remain a Gentile, go to Islam. And then see how they react. They might, have an Islamophobic shit fit. So I would have to, deal with that. And then the Muslims, I would have to ask them if they would, if they supported secular Quranism and see what they say. So, until there are other things like, okay, and what other group is there? There would be the people who consider themselves nationalists. I would have to ask them if they have a religion. And according to what they say, I would know, how to deal with them. What about the atheists? The atheists, I would have to ask if, I would have to ask them what they thought the nature and purpose of religion was. And if they refuse to engage, and I know a few who do, because they've been basically pretending to be Christian. In a particular case, he first said that he believed in God, and I asked him what his religion was, and he said his family was Anglican, and then I questioned the Trinity, and then he said he was an Arian, which meant that he would be considered a heretic by Anglicans. But he thought, the only reason why he pretended to be an Arian was because he, as in followers of the concept of the ideas of Bishop Arias, who said that Jesus was divine, but not of co-equal status with God. Trinitarians believe that Jesus is of co-equal status to the God of the universe, the God who created the universe. So obviously one is kind of easier to believe, the Arianism would be easier to believe because, it's like, Christianity is always going on about Jesus, so, we can credit him with being a bit divine, otherwise, what would be the point of being Christian? But what these Christians don't understand is that if they knew their Old Testament properly, they would know that idolatry is forbidden to Jews, and the penalty for Jews, if they are guilty of idolatry, is death. And this is illustrated in the story of the golden calf. So the story goes that when Moses went up to Mount Sinai to commune with God, he left the Jews with his brother Aaron, and his brother Aaron basically allowed idolatry to take place. So I don't know how they managed to gather enough resources to get themselves a golden calf, but this is what they did. They made for themselves a golden calf, these Jews who were taking a holiday from Moses, because Moses had gone up the mountain to talk to God, and they had fun worshipping this golden calf. You can imagine, probably, maybe dancing naked around this golden calf. But anyway, Moses came down and saw them cavorting and was very angry, and he was so angry he threw his tablets containing the 10 Commandments on the ground, smashing them, and then ordered that these cavorting Jews be executed. So that is the story. So that's how Jews derive the death penalty for idolatry. So, it always astonishes me how indifferent Christians are to this story. You would have thought it would, the story of Jews being forbidden idolatry and the fact that it's death for them if they practice idolatry would be something that would make Christians sit up and take notice, but not a bit of it. They're thinking, oh, well, that's all the Jews. But I say, but Christianity is idolatry. Look at your idols of Jesus and Mary all over the place. And they shrug their shoulders. It's like, oh, you might have a point there, or something like that. And then they, I guess, carry on with eating their dinner or whatever. I do remember a dinner party when this exchange took place. So they don't really care. And And obviously Christians don't care about being guilty of idolatry, but the Jews, for them, it's such a big deal that being found guilty of it means that you get death. I've forgotten why I was talking about this. Let me think back. I literally have forgotten why I told the story. Oh dear. Maybe the chat will help. I'm sorry. I'm getting a bit. Why did I tell the story? Can anybody remember? Was anybody listening? I wanted to talk about a subject. There was something I wanted to say to you this morning, and it was. Oh yes. I remember now. So I'm trying to sort the wheat from the chaff of Western masculinity, and I would have to ask them questions, so I would put them in separate groups and deal with them separately. That's basically what I'm saying. So the atheists I would deal with by asking them, do you want to be? Do you ever intend to be a married father, a married parent, and those who do, I would identify as being potentially supportive of secular Quranism. This is atheists, right? Atheists who want to become married parents. I mean, obviously, atheists who don't want to become married parents are no good at all, and I should just leave them alone. But and in fact ignore their views. So really, I mean, I do have a target group as a market, as part of my marketing strategy for secular Quranism. So you would support secular Quranism if you want to become a married parent in order to properly parent their legitimate offspring, or you have children that you want to become married parents. And you could be Jew or Gentile, black or white or non-white, because you have this, desire to have descendants, which not everybody else does. So I basically have to identify who is marriageable or not. And obviously you're not. Okay, so how do we define who is marriageable? And I say, at the very least, you have to be prepared to marry. Because if you're not prepared to marry, no matter how eligible you appear to be on paper with your, if you're Mr. Moneybags or if you're very beautiful, the fact that you don't want to marry makes you unmarriageable. So being marriageable is not just looking at somebody and thinking, oh, they're sexy, I wouldn't mind having a row in the hay with them, that kind of thing. So attractiveness is not a signifier of marriageability. Am I being too abstract for you people? I'm talking about, quite a few abstract ideas that I don't think degenerates would understand. Posterity, what is it? It's just an idea. You can't wear it, you can't eat it, you can't drink it, you can't fuck it, you can't burn it for fuel. It's not the sort of thing that materialists would take an interest in. So it can only be equated to a desire to have progeny, because you want descendants. And this, I think, is what would separate, potentially anyway. I mean, yes, anybody can say, yes, I want all kinds of things. When you say, well, if you want this thing that you say you want, you have to, do stuff, which they might not want to do. So, again, you have to separate the wheat from the chaff of the people who claim to want to be married parents, because I think, well, in principle, I have no objection, but if it means, going out of my way or suffering any boredom or irritation or costing me anything and having to make me change my behavior, then well, I'm not interested. But these things can be worked out later. So really, I am basically saying that in the best case scenario that I, of course, envisage, because I am logically and necessarily an optimist, otherwise I wouldn't, begin to have tried to sell secular Quranism to the Western political establishment. So potentially, if we're working, from the terms, in terms of, how many people in the West could potentially support secular Quranism if they were honest about what they claim, like, well, if they say they want to be married parents in order to properly parent their legitimate offspring, I would have to accept that some of them are lying. And that, obviously that would be no good to me. And, of all the, religious groups that I would be talking to, those who only pretend to be Jews or Christians or Muslims, well, they would be no good, because they wouldn't be able to act on those beliefs, which they don't really have. They're only using, the fact that they can call themselves Jews, Christians, and Muslims in order to give them a higher status in this life, because they don't really care about the afterlife. People like Jay who claim to be Christian, but just can't act correctly. He can't act correctly because he doesn't really believe in God. He doesn't believe that God exists to punish him for his disobedience or reward him if he's good. So he will continue to be guided by his emotions. So he is fundamentally a narcissist. A narcissist is somebody who submits to no higher power other than his own emotions, inclinations, moods, and fancies. So what he might say yes to yesterday, he might have changed his mind today. So he will always be changing his opinion, and he will always be saying yes and no, or as Jay often does, he says, yeah, but no, which is obviously a very what's the name of that character in Little Britain who says that? I forget her name now, but anyway, she's played by this transgender person who also plays a character of the only gay in town, which is quite funny. What's the name of her? Vicky Pollard, is it? Vicky Pollard, I think, is her name. So Jay has been mixing with people who say, yeah, but no. And I can imagine the kind of people he is mixing with. But we have to understand who his social circle is, and why he is the way he is. He comes here to join us because he's not really happy with the situation. He's, I suppose, part of respectable society in the sense that the people he mixes with are white, middle class females, and he doesn't want to alienate them by saying things that we say here without even a second thought. And he comes here to kind of basically run around naked because in the liberal circles that he frequents, he is obliged to exercise extreme self-censorship if he is not to be kicked out by by the local white women that he mixes with. And he will not be risking any lowering of his status because Well, why would he? But if he were to believe that supporting secular Quranism would be profitable and raise him in status, he would support it in a heartbeat, because that's the kind of man he is. He has no principles, and he's over the years he's basically complaining. I can read between the lines. He's saying, well, secular Quranism is not safe for me to support. Which is why there's, he's always going round and round in circles saying, yeah, there is something to secular Quranism, but Islamophobes hate it, and most people in this country are Islamophobes, and I'm really an Islamophobe, and I can't be seen to be supporting it because I would get kicked out of my Islamophobic social circle. So he can't do it. He won't do it. And he's basically lacking in what I call a state of mind prepared to defend patriarchal moral values. Well, he's not the only one. I know lots of people who just can't get it together. They can't. There's just so many sacred cows, and I've basically dragged them to the abattoir, and they can't do it. Given them a knife, and they can't do it. It's just too much for them, and they don't dare. But are there men higher status than Jay and the rest of his ilk prepared to do it? And I don't think there is, because the moment, even if you're a senior politician, or even a retired senior politician, or a retired judge of the Supreme Court, you just wouldn't dare. Because you can't say, oh, it's all been a lie, this crap about the British having, this wonderful unwritten constitution. A lot of their history is a lie. And they dare not talk about it because, like David Irving, he's a historian. And he was basically ostracized for making Hitler sound like a human being who occasionally made jokes and sometimes was likable and funny. But if that's the truth about Hitler, we can easily believe that Hitler was likable because he got voted in, didn't he? He was voted in a democracy. The Weimar Republic was a democracy. So we have to credit Hitler with some kind of personality that allowed him to be charming to so many Germans at the same time. So whatever we think of his military policy, and I think we can at least credit him with being liked by some Germans, once upon a time in Germany. But you see, all the problems that I'm having getting my message through is basically because people are fucked in the head. They're not thinking clearly, and they don't want to think clearly because they don't want to reach those conclusions that I have, because they don't want to end up like me, promoting secular Quranism, because that would make them the odd one out, and then they'd have to defend their views, and they don't think they're up to it. I mean, I win all my arguments, but it doesn't help because people they're not moved by truth. They don't care about logic. They don't care about the arguments. It's all about their feelings. And I'm not describing just the women. The men are just as emotional and just as irrational. They think they have to like my solution, which is not a very grown-up view to take. if you're gravely ill, then if you want to live, you would have to take the cure, even though the medical procedure is unpleasant, or it involves, I don't know, loss of an organ, loss of a limb, that kind of thing. And nobody's saying you should like it. Nobody says you have to like your amputation or the loss of one kidney, or whatever it is that you need to get rid of. But if you want to live, that's what you have to do. And unfortunately, so many people now who are adults, middle-aged even, some are grandparents, they still can't put two and two together. They still can't deduce conclusions from undisputed facts. Because I suppose all their lives it didn't pay them to do that. If you followed some logic that led to something unpleasant and you nevertheless followed it, then you'd probably be told off as an extremist. You'd be identified as an extremist, and you'd be called an extremist, and you'd be ostracized by the people that used to be your friends, and to some people it's dismaying and disastrous. So I can well understand that a lot of men are just not up to, standing up for a principle, even if they had one, even if they knew they were supposed to have principles. It doesn't pay for them to have principles. It pays them for them to be cattle and sheeple and do what the mainstream do because they're just a herd of buffalo, right? Or wildebeest, or elephants. They only know to follow the herd. And this includes the politicians. And the only way this can be reversed is that if there is some act of collective repentance, when people just say, yeah, it was wrong. Christianity was wrong, liberalism was wrong. I see it now. Claire's narrative of Western history is absolutely right. And we should turn back. We are heading towards a cliff, and we must turn back to avoid error and disaster, because we want progeny. We want descendants, and we want our descendants to think well of us and not think, how could they be so stupid? What were they thinking? What was wrong with them? But these thoughts do not occur naturally to the minds of European men, who can only think about their present comforts. And the state of affairs that created this mindset is of course atheism. It is atheism that makes you unable to think in terms of anything after you are dead. You're only prepared to, you won't even be acting responsibly, because you'll be thinking, well, I'm just going to use up all the stuff I can before I'm dead. And I don't really care about what happens to me after I'm dead, because I won't be around anymore. And you can identify these people by asking them questions, right? You can ask them if they believe in God and if they want to have legitimate offspring. Not just offspring, they've got to be legitimate. And if they say no, if they hesitate, then they're no good. Of course, there will be people who will lie and say they want to be married parents when they don't, claim they want to parent them properly when they don't give a damn. But even if people pay lip service to something, they would be held to it. Even if you said, I'm going to, pay you back for the money I borrowed off you, and you don't, you would at least remember that you said this. So principles and promises are are ways by which you measure the trustworthiness of a person. So, obviously you wouldn't trust somebody who's always lying. And somebody who's always lying is unfortunately somebody like Jay. But in a way, his neurosis is telling in that, he's telling lies because he's insecure. He's insecure because, on the one hand, he wants something to be true, and on the other hand, he knows it isn't. And that's why he says, yeah, but no. And he can't grow out of it after so many years of me going on about it, because I guess he doesn't have the discipline. He doesn't have the mental discipline. He doesn't see the point of it. Because he ultimately he doesn't respect the truth or the exercise of logic. But what he wants is moral superiority. He wants to win the argument, and if he can't, he will use insults and abuse to show his contempt and hoping that the insults and lies and abuse will lower you in status so that he can climb above you. I mean, these are the games that narcissists play. And unfortunately, most people, to a lesser or greater extent, think like Jay, because most people, most Westerners, are atheists. Nihilism is a product of atheism. And so a nihilist is somebody who has no principles. And if you have no principles, you basically make a god of your appetites and opinions and worship them. So it's narcissism. And for these people, well, I mean, you wouldn't want your child, if you loved her or him, to marry somebody like that. Or, well, you wouldn't want to marry somebody like that because they're going to hurt you, because that's how narcissists roll. Because there is no principle that they hold dear or can adhere to, and reality is something that can be manipulated. Because if they're not sure whether something is or isn't, then they will operate in a double-minded way. So, I mean, that's why he says, secular Quranism has good points, and then, it is rubbish. And, it has good points, and then it is rubbish. It has good points. So I think, why does he do that? His inconsistency is so consistent. Why can't he make up his mind? And what he's doing is basically waiting for it to be safe to support secular Quranism, because I know he will. In a heartbeat, he would support it if he knew it was profitable and would raise his status. I believe that with perfect faith that he would. And as long as I remain bumping along at the bottom, he will join the enemy and throw rocks at me, because that's how he rolls. And most people are like that, because of their fundamental atheism, and which produces nihilism, which which means that nihilists are people empty of principle. So they will lie and they will claim to believe in things that are nonsensical in order to achieve their ends. So they would say, yeah, I know Christianity is rubbish. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but I will pretend that I believe in the Trinity in order to be part of the gang, the most powerful gang, the mainstream gang. So I will do it if I need to. And this is, of course, corrupting. Christianity is corrupting. And finally, after all these centuries, you are where you are now. But you still can't admit that Christianity is kaput because you hate Islam, because there is no alternative. You're not going to become Scientologists or Nazis or fascists or Buddhists or Jews or Hindus, because if you're going to change your religion, you're going to choose the best available one, right? And it's not Hinduism, it's not Buddhism. Or Baha'ism, or any of the others, religions that you might have heard of. And so, what's happening now is all these lost boys in men's bodies, just going around in a daze, in a kind of revolving door of yes and no, and the yeah but no revolving door. Yeah but no revolving door. So I can work out a flow chart about how to deal with these people. But basically it is working out if you're marriageable, whether you want to be marriageable and whether you could be marriageable. And being prepared to become parents, would be your test. It would be your test of how potentially useful you could be to your country if you cared about being useful to your country. And if you did want to become marriageable, you would do the things that would make yourself marriageable. And you would want society to support people who are married parents. And this would mean changing the laws and abolishing all the marriage substitutes that currently exist in all their diversity and variety. And you have to be prepared to discuss it. And I know most people are not. They're either incapable of understanding what I'm saying or just simply unwilling to engage because it's a can of worms. And they don't want me to win the argument, so they're not going to engage. It's simple enough. So we don't know if British society is mostly full of marriageable people or mostly full of unmarriageable people. It's pretty touch and go. I mean, I suppose, the unmarriageable could be made to wish to become marriageable. I mean, I could plant the seed in their minds to become marriageable. I mean, it would be touch and go. And I wouldn't be able to do it without the cooperation of the Fourth Estate. And I wouldn't be able to get anywhere if nobody would engage with me. And it seems that they won't. All these people with their bigger channels, well, the bachelors, right? The bachelors, millennial woes. Ed Dutton is a married father, but, he's fundamentally dishonourable. So we're not really going to get that far. And lots of people understand what I'm trying to do, but I mean, some have actually said, yeah, I'll support you if you're more successful. But, in the meantime, I'm afraid of the other Islamophobes. Or words to that effect. They are afraid of the other Islamophobes. And they're not going to challenge them. Because they can't deal with, well, they could deal with they could use arguments to say, well, I'm a secular Quranist before, because, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think they're even prepared to pick up the weapons of arguments that I could place in their hands, so to speak. They're just not up to it, even at a theoretical level. So this is how the lowering of standards of sexual morality, leads to this kind of dementia, this sclerosis, this an inability to put the building blocks of logical thought and undisputable fact into conclusions that you would reach if you were using undisputable truth and sound reasoning. You're just not capable of it because you worship your emotions and your appetites, making you better than cattle. And, well, cattle were bred for a purpose, for slaughter and consumption. Citizen reporter said she wanted to come along. So I don't know. I've sent her the link. I'll also send white Muslim woman the link. Yeah, here we go again, Jay Walker. Just not getting the whole point of secular Quranism, because it's just malign encouragement. He wants me to. He wants me to convert to Islam and then mock me for being Muslim. It's like I can see what he's trying to do. I can see it from a light year. I can see a light year away. He's only going to. If I were to convert to Islam, he would throw even more rocks at me, and this is his way of undermining people. But fortunately, I'm not stupid. Fortunately, I can stick to my guns. I am basically saying you can arrive at the conclusion of theocracy without necessarily believing in God, and nobody can deny that the Quran is the best available guide to humanity. And that's why Jay threw away the Quran. He actually bought a copy and then he threw it away because, well, we know he doesn't like reading anyway, but, So I suppose his neurotic behavior is testament to his desire to resolve his issues, but fear and hatred of what he has to undergo in order to resolve his issues. So he will keep, pretending that my not being Muslim is against me. Well, I think it is precisely what allows me to stand head and shoulders above the other Muslims who, well, who don't promote secular Quranism, who think it is enough for them to believe in God and then they'll get to heaven. I don't care about these things. I just want to make my point. So, Jay says, oh, he has some good points, secular Quranism, and then he will be slagging off, Muslims, Muhammad, pedophile, blah, blah. I don't know if I'll be at Speaker's Corner all day tomorrow, but I will be thinking of you all. Christine Ramsey hasn't read the Wikipedia entry about the doctrine of the Trinity. It is about the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit of co-equal status. That's what it says. I know Catholics don't bother about these niceties because actually their confirmation classes they don't want to go too much about these, these esoteric things that, that if you understood them well enough, you'd be asking a lot of awkward questions and they wouldn't be able to answer your awkward questions. So they what they want to do is to get you to say the Nicene Creed, and when you repeat it without understanding, they will think, oh, they repeated those words with me, so I understand it. I've been to enough church services to know that is what the priest does. They make you sit up, stand up, sit down, sing a few hymns, do a few readings, recite the creed, and then they say, yeah, all right. They've taken the host. They recited the creed. Well, all right, we've got a bunch of Christians here. No, I'm not going to Speaker's Corner tomorrow because I have to be here to talk to Rob Dufour. Secular Quranism, the hashtag. I think if you were to ask Mr. IC3 about secular Quranism and how it will protect your race, it will protect your racial integrity. And I'll explain again how it would. Because, look, if you're a racial group, okay, they're really only four colours, really. Black, white, yellow, brown, and you want to preserve, the particular colour of your racial group. Let's all assume that this is the whole plan. So what you have to do then is to only marry, people of your own colour group. And this means you have to stop your children from marrying members of any other colour group. And they would only do that if you asserted parental and paternal authority, and men won't be able to do that if they don't marry the mother of their offspring or hang around in the household during the childhood of the child. It really is as simple as that. So if you can't even do that, you're not going to preserve the racial integrity of your race. So that is it, really. So I'm going. Carol's backstage, and I'm going to read all the comments before I I let her join, so I didn't miss anything out. Well, why do you think the concept of God is ridiculous? I mean, do you think Jews are ridiculous? Do you think anti-Semitism is ridiculous? Do you think the way some anti-Semites blame Jews for everything is ridiculous? That they're putting Jews as only lower than God. Yeah, Daniel Sienkiewicz is the most ridiculous man, but it's like, yeah, he's an undiagnosed autist. So I guess he can't help himself, but it does annoy me that this level of incompetence is being exhibited in the political grouping that I am in. Yeah, I'm ashamed of myself too. Oh, thanks for saying that my monologues have improved. All right. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Fine. So I was messing around trying to do videos, and I can't get the hang of it yet, but I'll be looking at it again.
What seems to be the problem?
I just don't quite understand the program, and then something's popping up saying I have only so many days before I have to pay. I'm just a little. Someone needs to tell me exactly what I've agreed to try to make them, I guess.
Oh, StreamYard.
Yeah.
Right. So you're on your free trial period, and you, I guess it's about a month or something. Is it or?
I think it's 5 days.
Oh, better do what you can.
Yeah, I have to think around with it again. But yeah. So how are you doing?
I'm very well. I mean, just to carry on about the StreamYard before I forget. I mean, what I have is 23 hours every month, which I can. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And if you don't do more than that, you're okay. You can use it for free, but a lot of people do much more than that, and so they pay.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll have to look at it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's confusing. So what did I miss here today? What were you all?
Oh, just my monologue. It's nothing new really. But I mean, to the extent of actually, I thought it was new this morning. But now, it's all about sorting the wheat from the chaff of Western masculinity. I mean, what questions I would ask and which groups I would assign them to according to what their answers would be, and which group would be the group most likely to support secular Quranism. And then I concluded that only the ones who want to become married parents would support secular Quranism, and it would be touch and go. I mean, even if it was a referendum that I'm conducting today.
I see. Okay.
I don't know if I certainly don't know for sure if more than half, the people would support marriage. Even if they understood all the arguments.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like nobody wants to make a commitment to marriage. Very few people seem to. They don't want to make a commitment. It's all about fun, Claire. Expressing oneself in the outer society in ways that will never promote progress.
But not even a nationalist. Because you think, well, surely white nationalists who are supposed to be concerned about their race, they would be able to see it. But I think that they're just pretending not to, because Because it's too much for them, I guess. 3 generations of feminism. 3 generations of free love.
You know, it used to be if a man wanted a woman, he'd seal the deal and ask her to get married. They don't even want to finish the deal. They just want everything without making the deal, so they have no responsibility. If you have that type of mindset, why would you want marriage? Why would you want to be responsible if you can play in the playground of life without any responsibility? That's basically what's going on here.
So women should go on a sex strike. I mean, assuming there aren't enough women who want to be married mothers. I mean that's the other option, isn't it? It's like, well, just don't put out.
Absolutely, and it should be as a group. All women should go on a free sex strike. Okay, you're not going to pay for sex. You're not going to get sex you pay for. Taking me out to dinner, you're not going to get sex. You're just not going to get sex unless you marry me. That's exactly what they all should do, because what goes on is, if the woman doesn't entertain the man in that way after 1 or 2 dates, that's the end of the dating, right?
Yeah, it used to be the 3-date rule. So the women would never clinch a deal. They'd have 2 free dinners from the man, but never go for the third one. But now they don't even get dinner.
Well, now all they get is a little chat on Tinder and a 2-hour block of time. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. The whole thing's crazy. Even if you're not a Muslim, let's say even if you don't believe in marriage itself, this is ridiculous for women to demeaning themselves like this. I've heard of women, they go have these
hookups,
booty calls or whatever. They do the booty call. Let's go do the booty call. Yeah, that's what they call it in the U.S. The booty call. Oh, he called me. It's 11:30 at night. I'm going to go see him. What does she think he wants? He's not even taking you out for a few drinks first now. I mean, this is really horrible. And then these women are like, well, are you going to see me again? Well, yes. When I'm in mood for a booty call, I'll give you a ring. I mean, what is... Okay. Well, I mean, really, wouldn't a normal person just rather watch a movie than put themselves in that kind of position continuously? And that's what a lot of young women do now.
There's even this horrible term called side chick.
The what?
Side chick.
Side
not
chick.
The main girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. I got my side chick. Well, you got too many side chicks and the wife finds out, you don't get the wife. Oh, how about a bunch of side chicks, no wife at all? And then your kids meeting each other in school and then having booty calls with each other. How about that? This is crazy. I've known people whose children were in school and found out they had brothers and sisters they didn't know about. I mean, how's that for? Oh, okay. This is true, by the way. I've actually known people that's happened. I mean, it goes beyond the old, the old Italian movie of the mafia. Say, have the wife's night out, and then you have the mistress's night out. It goes beyond that. There's people finding out who their fathers are. This isn't good. How can you feel? I mean, here you are, and you're a person, and you realize you came from that. You came from some one night.
You weren't planned.
Not planned, not wanted, not anything.
You could have been a dropping.
Something, yeah. You were just picked up on the side. I mean, it's terrible. Humans are worth more than that. Humans don't need to look at the animal kingdom and get our cues from that to how we're going to live our society life.
No, but what's worse is that non-human animals the female of the species makes a more careful selection than human females sometimes. At least they say, "Oh, he looks big. I like his size. I like the
especially
the
birds.
height of his antlers or whatever."
Especially birds. Those men birds, they have to really hop around and strut their stuff. They have to keep doing it. And then she kind of looks at the other birds. No, not you, not you. Mm-mm. I think I don't know. But of course, birds have a much shorter childhood with their eggs.
Yeah.
They just stay in a very short time, then you boot them out of the nest. And then it's, let them be hunted on their own. Humans have a much longer time to create that human and introduce it to society and give it the skills it needs to survive. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not into irresponsibility. I guess everybody knows that here anyway. So.
But the thing is, this idea of sexual liberation is, I think, universal. It's like if anybody can fall into this trap of thinking, well, what's the harm of it? I mean, that's the repeated question that Vincent asked of you, and it's actually quite hard to express. But I felt fine. You might call it abuse, but I enjoyed it. And the thing is, just because you don't see any harm doesn't mean there is no harm. But it's hard to argue in a way, to a really determined person.
Well,
it's like, okay, well, you might feel disgusted about it, but okay, we if we practice contraception, my sister and I, or my brother and I, assuming that's the opposite sex, what's your problem?
Well, this kind of behavior doesn't promote anyone learning any patience, and you have to have a lot of patience to keep a marriage going. You have to have patience. You have to have a lot of patience when dealing with children. If it feels good, that's all I'm going to do. You can't bring up children. You just can't. You're going to be an absent parent emotionally. It just won't happen. You can't be like that, because it's not fun all the time bringing up children. Sometimes it gets quite dull. Sometimes you feel like you're going crazy because you're not hearing any adults have any conversation. You got a few really small kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That can eat on your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can an adult person, can someone learn as they're growing up to amuse themselves, entertain themselves in a way that they can bring up children and, keep the race going, keep the humans going? And can they do it without sliding down into some level of non-human? See what I'm saying? I mean,
Please carry on.
No, that was okay. I like you to talk, Claire.
I suppose I am comparing, how casually some humans have sex with animals who choose their sex partners, well, females of the species who choose their sex partners more carefully. I mean, like the female whale, I think she's called a cow, but anyway, I mean, what she does, I read, was that she would come up to a bunch of male whales and I guess she'd say, hi guys, and then they all look at her, and then she'd swim away, and she'd swim really fast, and the male whale that managed to keep up with her and catch her, get her. But there would be some sort of test for them to, there would be some kind of way for her to decide. Obviously, these animals don't get married, so they use some other way of choosing the, best available male.
Oh,
well, and it can't be because of how
sort
good
of like do you want a wife Olympics? Who can win the race to get the best woman? Is that how we're going? Because actually, men used to kind of think like that. How can they get that woman before somebody else does? And what was the offer? They offered marriage. They didn't offer a roll in the hay and leaving you with a kid when you can't remember what his name was. So we're going to make up a fake name now for the birth certificate. Not even going to put down father unknown. Just, what was his name? What was it? I don't know if I even remembered to get it. You know what I'm saying? The offer was marriage. That was it. The offer was marriage. So you were a woman, and let's say you had 3 or 4 offers, and you were looking at the men. Okay. Were you trying to go out and dance around in front of the men that weren't offering anything? No, you chose among the men who asked, the men who stepped up and said, I would like to marry you. I want to be committed to you. And then the woman would decide. It wasn't based on this is going to be boring and I won't have fun. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, okay, the birds are out here dancing around. Oh, please pick me, oh bird, oh lady bird, please pick me. Well, yeah, that's right. Because the birds that are dancing in front of the ladybird are saying, pick me, I'll be your mate, I'll be your man, right? Now, their birds have a different idea of marriage. They don't think it needs to last as long, I guess. But some of them seem to last longer, and wolves certainly do. Wolves mate for a lifetime. But are we going to get our cues all from the animal kingdom? Yeah, I think not. You know what I mean? Yes. I mean, interesting as it is. And then you have the problem of which animal should I pick to be my model for marriage when I'm not that animal and the kid hangs around 20 years. And in some cases now until they're 40. Right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think we can take our cues from the animal kingdom, much as it's interesting to watch these shows, you know, the lions and all that.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff. So it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but I think it's simple.
It is. If you make the rules clear, people will know not to be sluts. Well, women would know not to be sluts.
They would understand that, and the men would realize, you know, the one who's saying no might be a better choice than the one who's saying yes, and might just drain your bank account later without doing your laundry. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So I it was so simple. People used to think more simply and realistically back in the day. And I mean, I don't think anyone's encouraging the idea that a woman's only function is to clean up after a man, you know, but this isn't all right. And it's not all right. All these feminists that have told women that they can have everything they want. How much energy does somebody have? Does anyone understand how much time consuming it is to bring up kids? How much mental thought has to go into it daily? You know, they're sucking on your brain. You have to take care of them. You have to drive them to doctor's appointments. You have to do all this stuff. And now you must be the soccer mom too, and take them to these soccer games if you can afford that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so they think, okay, we can replace mommy with a nanny. You know, people with money, they do that. But what is that? None of this is okay that's going on. People need to at least be thinking in the right direction, even if they can't produce perfection. And, you know, examination of the animal kingdom is only going to get you so far. Mm-hmm. You're just going to think, well, yeah, sex. There's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different oh, look at that. They're beak to beak. I mean, what's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point? You know?
Yeah.
And people, when they get older and stuff, what makes them happy is they had a family. Especially
they can look back on that.
Yeah. They can look back on it. And most women, I mean, to be honest, most women, after they're done with their career, they're not happy with a gold watch. You don't even get a gold watch anymore. You know, it's relationships. Women like relationships. They like people. They like closeness of people. Men can be a little bit in and out of that. You understand? Because they have to be in and out of it, because in the old days, when the woman was having that baby in the cave, the man had to go out and get the food. Right? So he has to be able to detach some. But women, they should cultivate being a woman. But everybody wants to interpret this now as somehow being weak and not important. You know, this is unimportant. And what is bad is that women have not realized how important they really are. They don't see their own importance anymore, except functioning in a man's environment to either provide sexual entertainment for him or to take over jobs, or to take over jobs. Yeah, people have to understand, I'm not saying for women to not work if they need to work or this, but they need to put thought into do they want a family? And if they do, a lot of people, I was talking to a younger woman yesterday, and she was telling me that she has some friends in their 40s. They have some really good careers, and now they're trying to have children, and they're all running, they're trying to get the hormones and stuff and all this because now they want their families. Now they want
and they only have one kid, and they wrap that kid up in cotton wool and totally ruin its character.
Well, especially if they don't have a man in the house. Women tend to dote on their children, and it's pretty bad how they dote on the boy children if they don't have a man in the house. Like it's like the children take over. Children learn how to butt out of a relationship somewhat if there's a man and woman in the house. Not everything is privy to their inclusion, in other words. So they get children in a household where they don't have two parents living in it. They a lot of times get an inflated idea of where they can inject themselves into, not just conversations, just in general. They think they're on equal with adults. You know what I mean? And they don't get it. They just don't get it. They think their opinion is on the level of somebody who's paying all the bills. Right? And the woman's energy, every person has only so much energy. So if you have a husband in the house, yeah, you're not gonna spend all of your doting attention on someone to that point that they think that's expected. They think it's expected that somebody do that, right? It's not helpful. It's not helpful for a society where people need to work and need to build, buy a house, have a home. It's not a good end. And you can't imitate that. You can't imitate that in a home by yourself as a woman if there isn't a man in the house. Because if there's a man in the house, they will eventually have to tell the child, this isn't your time right now. So the child learns appropriate boundaries, appropriate boundaries.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. The whole thing gets very, very complicated if you study it and start looking at this. And when you've seen it in action over the years, I can say without a fact, the most well-adjusted adults that I have met have been people brought up in two-parent homes. The parents stayed together. And then after that, there's varying degrees of okay or not. And even with the two parents in the same home, depending on, was it exactly beaver cleaver or not? But they had the best chance. They were the most successful, and they were the ones who had families later. And now I'm seeing.
What did you say about Beta Cleaver? What was that?
Beaver to Cleaver. There used to be a show, Leave It to Beaver, and it was like these two kind of nice parents talking to Beaver. Another one was Father Knows Best. The dad who didn't have a wife. There was that one. The dad bringing up his sons. They're a little bit. I guess you have to be American and brought up on seeing those shows
right.
back in that time period,
Mm-hmm.
or this sort of thing. But no, if you think about it, most people, when they're older and they're looking back at their lives, they're not looking at a photo album of their work. They're looking at a photo album of their family.
Yeah.
You can't destroy the family. I mean, even for personal feeling of real connectedness, you destroy the family, you're destroying society. You create a family that's some sort of pseudo family where it's just bringing more and more and more people into the family in some kind of odd way. You're promoting no limits. There has to be a limit. And what makes the most stable are two parents who are in agreement. And that's where religion comes in. If you have two parents that are in a religion and view life the same way, it's very stable. That's very stable. So, you sometimes have parents with two religions and stuff. Nobody's saying people can't get along like that. I mean, yeah, sure you can, but it's stability, rules, the way you look at life, the intuitive understanding that maybe you can't articulate why this is wrong. You just know it is when you see it. These are valuable tools. You don't learn that in a family that's so fluid. Nobody knows what's going on. See? Mm-hmm. So we have varying degrees between the two. We have massive stability, and then we have total chaos. So which one's worth promoting?
It's obvious, isn't it?
Yes, it's obvious.
If you're sane.
I know one of my children knows someone who was actually brought up in a, I'm trying to think of the name of that cult. She was brought up in what was the name of that cult? It was one of those sex cults. They finally got away from it, and
I don't think I know any.
I have to think of it. There have been different ones. This one was a big one that went around Europe. Anyway, they got out of it and stuff, but they have a problem committing to anything. It's just a little bit. I haven't met the girl, but if you come out of that and you decide, okay, this is not how I want to live, I want to do something else, you still have a problem figuring out what exactly is it and how do you do that? You know what I mean? How do you make a family that's so stable? How do you replicate that if what you were brought up was in such chaos? Now, if you have everybody in society emulating chaos, they can't figure it out. Even if you're in a chaotic situation and you can see a bunch of people who are modeling this, you might get a pretty good idea somehow that this is possible. But what's going on now in the schools, for example, people want to say, let's promote these lifestyles, every single lifestyle, and explain them all to 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, different levels. And if you're going to do all of that, they want to pretend like that's not undermining the family, but it is. It's undermining a traditional family. That idea is marginalized, and not only is it marginalized, it's being made to seem unenlightened, backwards, not fun. And who said being in a traditional family was going to be fun all the time? Is living in a sex cult fun all the time? This idea of fun all the time is retarding human development. We need some fun, and we need to learn patience, how to handle boredom, stability, how to have thoughts of your own. And this barrage that's going on now doesn't exist anymore. Very difficult to amazed my parents brought us up. I'm shocked I was able to even bring my children up, and I don't know how my kids are going to bring them up now, because this chaos is so much more than the chaos I grew up in, right? But my parents were rocks. They were stable people. And I'm here to say it wasn't like I was slap happy having fun every moment of it. I wasn't. I can seriously say my parents were the fun busters. You know, they had that rule that, you know, that we have fun, but you know, they got the picture. They knew what was going to be a disaster. They were from a time period when, you know, if people had kids and all this stuff and they weren't married, they had kids when they weren't married. It wasn't this running down to, you know, go get abortions and thinking that was going to fix the situation and then go out and do it again. And this idea that you're not worth anything. Women are worth something. We have value, and it's not just as a sex toy, and it's not just as a wage earner, and it's not just as being able to photo, you know, being able to post on Facebook or some social media. I'm an amazing person. You know, some people are living on out loud on Sexbook as if they're in that series Sex in the City, but their lives don't even look like that. This is terrible. It's terrible. You know, does anyone know how fun it is when you're a mom and you don't have a lot of stress because your man thinks he's going to take care of the family. Even if you have a job, you know, he's going to take care of the family. He's going to be there to take care of you. And you're out there playing with a little plastic pool with your kid playing in it. Do you know how fun that is? It's unbelievably fun. Way more fun than this other stuff I'm seeing. So, do women want to enjoy themselves as a human woman, or do they want to imitate what was that, bonobo and a chimpanzee or whatever it was Vincent was talking about? Are we going to imitate the bonobos? Okay, let's just keep, you know, there's just no limit to all of that. And it's the limits that allow somebody the freedom to be what they...
I think the bonobos are having a problem surviving, because I think, you know, I think if they had a fight, if a group of bonobos had to fight a group of chimps, the chimps would win and kill them. And take their territory. You know?
Oh my goodness.
I just have a feeling that's what's happening even now. Because I suspect the chimps are more organized.
Oh, well, Claire.
And it's a simple thing. I mean, you know, either men or women could do it. You know, the men can go on a marriage strike, and the women could go on the sex strike. It doesn't matter which does it first, but just one group doing that, you know, what is suggested would change everything, would flip everything.
A lot of men don't even think they can get a woman like that anymore. They're convinced women are not going to be like that. And why do they think that? Because so many are not like that. You know,
good mothers and wives. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they instinctively know is if a woman's going to be a good mother and wife, she would have to be satisfied with one man. And now we got a woman that's got 3 or 4 guys going on. Women are imitating men in almost every aspect of their life, it seems like now. And they're putting a dress on it. And then you have men putting on dresses, imitating women.
Well, even the standards of transgenderism has fallen. It's like, well, you've got to put on a dress. Why don't you shave that beard off? You know, can't you do that? If you want to pretend to be a woman, just shave that beard off.
Well, there is a joke that the first step to Muslims sort of say this. I don't know if people. The first step to transgenderism is shaving your beard. You know, like denying a natural part of your own face, right? But shaving beards and stuff had to do with the Roman Empire's idea. I mean, it's obviously we're not really
But they do
talking
it to
about beards.
please us. They do it to please us because I knew this male friend and he had a beard for ages, and then he met this woman and he shaved his beard off.
Well, women don't like the short whiskers. They need to grow it a little bit longer. It's scratchy.
Mm.
And, if it doesn't look clean, the beard doesn't look nice.
Mm.
Looks kind of scraggly. I mean, some people like the scraggly look. But it was during my father's time, a man who wasn't shaved was viewed as not a proper presentation in society.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Western idea. That
Yes,
beard,
the 5 o'clock shadow that Nixon
yeah.
had apparently didn't do him any favors.
Yeah, something like like that. They didn't see that as being well kept, as being a well kept man. They had different little ideas on that,
Mm-hmm.
but the beard itself isn't the real issue. It's denying manhood. You're going to deny manhood to be what? And that, it's men need to embrace being a man, and they need to embrace me being a man fully, not just adapting caricatures from cartoons. I'm going to be a big important gangbanger. I'm going to shoot somebody. I'm a big man because I can hold up a liquor store or whatever they're doing. Or, I can stand on a street corner and, I can get some of my friends together and we can go rape this girl and put it on social media. Right? This isn't men behaving like men. It's awful. It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not being a man to expect women to be their mommies or to be a substitute father for them either. I mean, I don't know if a lot of men realize they're actually asking women now to be their fathers. And then nobody, I don't know. It's really sad, Claire. To me, this is obvious. And then everyone's sitting around like they're trying to discover what to do or try to figure out what to do. And I'm seeing very unhappy younger women, which, we saw unhappy younger women before when we couldn't get jobs. I mean, we saw that too in history. But, I remember when women had a different paycheck totally. They were just paid less.
Mm.
Right. You got paid
And
less.
that was expected. And
I'm not saying that. I remember when they first put women on the news.
Mm.
They went on, it's the weather girl. That was it. They went on and told the weather, and everybody was like, oh, it's a woman on the news. What is she doing on there? But she wasn't really getting to tell the news. She was the weather girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they tried to get someone that was kind of cute, but
yes, as they would. But this reminds me of I don't know if you've heard of Nigel Farage. Have you heard of him?
No.
Well, he was a guy who wanted. He led a party called UKIP that wanted to leave the EU, and Nigel Farage had been in a company of Trump a few times. But anyway, he in the run up to the EU referendum, he had to have a few interviews, and what I noticed about what Sky News did about him was just find the most attractive blonde woman to challenge him. It would never be, one man challenging another man. It'd be, I guess they do it, they would find their most attractive female presenter to confuse people in the same way that well, Trump had to be interviewed by, what's her name? Kelly something or other? She was Irish, redhead.
Yeah. Schmoozing women or trying to overpower women because you're not man enough to fight a man. That's what we're talking about here. So, this isn't being manly. Now, I'm not saying a man can't interview a woman on their show, but what this is ridiculous. You know,
but it was intended to confuse the audience, to sort of say, "Oh, look at this pretty blonde lady asking, mean old Nigel Farage, who's probably a fascist and a racist, all these, clever questions, and look at him not answering." I think that was the intention. And as far as Trump was concerned, the woman who interviewed him was, I guess, considered attractive, and he couldn't be mean to her, because the moment he was mean to her, he would, be seen to be a brute, and just to make things more difficult for the subject.
Did
of
you?
The interview.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Did you? Do you know why there's used to be? Well, now of course, when you fly in airplanes, you have men and women's, stewards and stewardesses. But do you know why it used to be women?
Because people preferred women.
No,
Because they were more comforting, or
No.
more reassuring.
no. When the airplanes first came out, everybody was afraid to get on them. It was to shame the men into having enough courage to get on the airplanes.
Ah, yes, of course, it makes sense now.
Yeah. So women were being used to inspire men. Now women are just being used by men. Right. Men see women as something to be used. They're disposable. They're objectifying them. And women are buying into this they're buying into this by feeding into it. They're not saying no to any of this. The women need to say no, and the men need to be told, you need to act right. You need to start thinking about what you're doing, Buster. Because nobody wants you anymore. It's getting to where nobody wants them anymore. And if the white men don't want women, white women, if they don't want white women marrying brown men, then they need to produce a better product, because these brown guys are asking people to get married, and they mean commitment. Some of them, not all of them. Of course, we're not talking about the rapists that are running around, those little gang of rapists running around. I'm not talking about that. But, if you're talking to people who believe in marriage and don't, where are you going to get a spouse from? If white men don't believe in marriage and they think they're going to wait until they're 65 and get a trophy wife, what do they think they're doing? I mean, it's like they're waiting until they're so pooped out to try to get, the woman who's going to be their nursemaid for them. Right? What are women getting out of that? Women want a family. They're supposed to wait around until they can fulfill the purpose of being a trophy wife, nursemaid to somebody. No, I don't think so. I don't.
There's something else dysgenic that's going on, which is that men who have basically decided that they don't want children would have a long-term relationship with a woman that is obviously too old to become a mother, who has basically given up on, having children. So then it would be safe for these men to enter into long-term relationships with these women who no longer expect to have children.
Well, that's like these 30-year-old men, now 30s, in their 30s. They actually make big incomes. They're having vasectomies in the United States. They're going out and having vasectomies when they don't even have a girlfriend. They don't even have a girlfriend. They've decided their materialism and wealth is more important than a wife and children. People aren't looking at what these choices really mean. Okay, a man in his 30s, he could probably get someone about 25 to get married who's pretty decent and likes him. Or he could get someone his own age. If he makes a good paycheck. I think a lot of men who make pretty good paychecks can get married if they want. Okay, that's my opinion. And they're the ones refusing to get married. So we're going to have a culture now of more and more poverty, because the people who actually are making money aren't getting married. And so who can get married? What are you going to choose from? Someone whose plan is to go get low-income housing, go on welfare, line up for food stamps. They make a plan around that. Now, if somebody has to do that, I'm not making fun of somebody having to do that. I mean, you would have to be a totally uncreative mind to realize to take advantage of something that would be financially good for you. I mean, if that's what you need to do it, but the mindset's not good. You know what you understand what I'm saying, Claire?
Yeah.
We want men. We want a guy. You want a guy that can figure out what to do when the poop hits the fan. Not one who has to run to mommy or run to the government. Please give me a handout. Please help me, mommy. Help me, mommy. You don't want men like that.
You don't want men who want UBI.
You want a man who will be a man. Let's say a man gets fired from, and let's see what kind of a job should we make it. I don't know. Let's say he gets fired from pick a job, Claire. Okay, if he gets fired from something and it doesn't translate into ease and getting another job in the same type of thing. You know, a lot of jobs now are pretty much either do that job or you can't do. It doesn't transfer into another type of career, or even, you know, like if you do roofing, maybe you can get into construction. But these post office jobs or something like that, it's not going to go anywhere, right? So the guy's done that. Can he humiliate himself and go beg for that job back for his family? Can he do it? Does he have an understanding of when to do these behaviors and when not to? A man who knows when to beg for his job back is worth way more than a man who refuses to do it because he has some sense of pride. A real man knows when to step on his own pride and when not to, and how to set his life up to not be a slave as best as he can out of the choices that are out there. And these are outstanding people to be around, people like this, that are like this. I just love them. That's like what my dad was. My dad was, his story, you know, I think I spoke a little bit about him, and I speak about him because he was a white man and he wasn't Muslim, because a lot of people are interested in, you know, Muslims and their crazy ideas, right? He was a white man. He was brought up, you know, he was brought up and they were poor. Everybody used to be real poor. You know, we see old pictures of him. He's real skinny and short. He was actually kind of short back then. And he was smart enough in school that he was offered a scholarship to college and he didn't take it. Instead, he joined the CCCs because they offered food every day. And
What's that?
It was a Civilian Conservation Corps. It was like a work thing for something similar to AmeriCorps. It was some way to build men up. You had a lot of unemployed men and stuff. So he went out, he joined that. And then, you know, he got to eat. He really liked eating. He liked to have some food. And then after that, he made a choice. He looked around and he said, I'm going to go in the military. So he went in the military. He looked at his options and he made the best one. He did not whine at his mommy and daddy, please help me. They couldn't help each other. Everybody was really, really, really poor back then. It was very, very poor people. And he never had this attitude of making himself a slave to something, but he was realistic about the choices he had. And he did the best choice and he lived with them. And he picked my mom. He met my mother, and you know, she was Irish American, right? Her father was from Ireland, and her mom was, I think her mom actually was born in Ireland, but they had some kind of fake papers for her saying that she was born here or something. But anyway, what's the point of this? What am I saying, Claire? I'm rambling again. So he wanted her. Okay. And so my mom told him one day, because back then women didn't date exclusively one man. They didn't have to because they weren't having sex with him. You had to, if you wanted a woman exclusive, you married him. So she told my dad, look, I think it's about time we got married. My mom told him this. And and at the time, because my dad had already joined the military then, his rank was not allowed to get married. You had to get
Oh.
permission from the commanding officer to get married back then. And enlisted people, you had to have permission. And so he said, well, I'm not ready to get married yet. And she just told him flat out, it'll either be you tomorrow or somebody else next week. And so he said, I'll fix the car. And they drove to another state and got married. And then they kept it a secret from the military. And then World War II broke out. And then nobody cared who anybody was married to, pretty much, unless they, the Japanese war bride stuff and all that. But, he made choices. And my mom, she just told him that's the way it is, buddy. Women need to tell me, and that's the way it is. You want me exclusive? I'm going to go live with you for 15 years for what? With a man, if they're not married, ever move in with them. Why should they get this kind of exclusivity without the responsibility?
Yeah.
It's all about the future, life, being happy. What's going to make you the happiest?
Yeah, but your way doesn't make people happy. That's why there's so much divorce. If your way truly made people happy, there would be no divorce. There would never have been a feminist revolution. Nothing would have changed.
Wait, you're bubbling
You're
out.
fading in and out.
Vincent, you're bubbling in and out. I think you have your phone on speaker or something and walking around, or you're too far from the Wi-Fi or something.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm gonna go out and come back in.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you were loud and clear a moment ago.
I think it's
but people would be unhappy, yes, in their marriage. They would be bored and irritated, but at least disgrace would keep them in their marriage and prevent them from doing this thing that would actually, maybe be a matter of jumping out of the frying pan into the fire.
Well, it'd make them think. It would make people consider it. It would make people consider divorce more. I mean, not consider divorce more. It would make them
think twice.
Forced to make a real decision in their mind what it is they're trying to do. I'm not seeing people thinking out their decisions very well anymore.
Well, women didn't think out their positions very well a long time ago when they really had no option except to get married because they were kept out of the workforce mostly. They were kept out of education mostly. Society made a woman dependent. She was dependent on a man. She didn't have a choice. She was squashed down, put in a position where she had nothing. And then it was like, well, you better get married if you want to be taken care of. Take what you can get when you can get it. Go on. That's not choice. That's slavery.
I said decisions, Vincent, not positions.
Yeah, but you're taking away
adult decisions from what is available to you.
I know, but you've made it so that there's less of it. Back in that day, and if we lived in the world that you want, women would be disempowered. They would have less choices because you have given them less choices, and you have put them in a predicament where they are necessarily dependent upon a man, where it is necessary, where she needs a man to get on in life, especially when she wasn't allowed to work or go to school or do anything like that. You are robbing her of her choices. You're taking all her choices away from her so that she only has two fucked up assholes to choose from. And then, well, choose one because you know what? You're in a position you have to get married. What are you going to do? Are you going to live at home for the rest of your life? Are you going to become homeless? Are you going to become a spinster? What are you going to do? This is what you have. Choose the option. We've put you in this position. I was like breaking your child's legs and then saying, choose something to do with your life. Like, it's retarded.
Well, Vincent, do you think waiting until you're 40, a woman should wait until she's 40 to have children, and then having to go to doctors to try to get some hormones to make her pop some eggs, and maybe not happening at all? Do you think what's going on right now is a choice for women? I mean, you have a society pressure to do all these things that men used to do and give up having a family. That's what the society pressure is right now.
Yeah, that wouldn't, okay, it would not have, this wouldn't have happened. Women would not have rebelled. Women would not have wanted to get into the workplace. Women would not want to be in political offices and all of these different kinds of things that men used to do if they had not been mistreated. Had women been treated well and were given respect in the position that they were in and power in the position that they were in, and were generally taken care of well, there would never have been a feminist revolution. It would never have happened. Just as if gay people had never been harassed, there would never have been a gay revolution. The gays probably would never have asked for marriage equality, because if they hadn't been made to feel as though they were inferior, it's probably something that wouldn't have come across their mind in the first place. Same thing with feminism. None of this would be if men had not done the wrong thing.
But even some of the feminists have agreed that they made a mistake. Just a moment. Just a moment.
Are you there, Claire? Hello, is anyone there? I must be the only one on the stream.
Okay, back. Sorry, Vincent. I had to answer the phone over here.
Okay, yeah, some of them made a mistake, but that's because it wasn't, just like my argument with polygamy had okay, had the system already incorporated women's a degree that women's fulfillment. Okay, let's say that we lived in a system that already incorporated women's fulfillment into the system, not keeping them as second class or whatever, abusing them or anything like that. Then if a system is built that way, then it functions. Okay, the system was not built to function with women's needs in mind. It wasn't built that way. So they didn't even know, they rebelled against it, but there was no formula to keep society going in a healthy manner, because there had been no time to evolve that, because it had been suppressed for so many centuries that society never slowly evolved into a healthy model where women are free and prolific at the same time with their progeny. And that's possible. It's possible to have feminism and a prolific child birth rate. It is possible to have those things at the same time. It's just like, okay, it's like if you take a child and you restrict the child so much and you never let it learn anything at all, never let it learn, and then what is this? Oh, where'd you get these? Um, if you never let it learn and you never let it do anything and you abuse it and then you throw it out into the world and then it tries its best to rectify everything that you did to it, but it can't because it's just too fucked up from everything that happened. And then you sit and point at it and say, ha ha, you can't do it yourself. See. I mean, that's what you're doing. You've taken your child, ruined it, thrown it out, it escaped. Okay, you've ruined it to the point that it ran out of house.
Vincent, can you talk just a little bit slower? just a tiny bit slower. I'm trying to hear exactly what you're saying.
I'm saying that if you, like a woman, if you took a child and you restricted it and did not let it have access to information or to freedom or to liberty or to anything like that, to the point that it escaped, okay, then it escapes. The child escapes, runs out into the world, and tries to make its way in the world as it has been presented, but it makes mistakes, it messes up, it does it wrong because nothing was set up for it, and it was set up all wrong, and it was abused. And then people like you sit there and laugh at that child and be like, ha ha, see, told you, you can't make it on your own.
Who said I was laughing at anybody? Who says I'm laughing at anybody?
Well, I mean, that's what you want to tell feminists, that, see, you did it wrong. You can't do it on your own. But it's like they're coming out of a position where they wouldn't have gotten it right the first time. Okay, like my parents did a horrible job with me, and I did a really bad job making decisions in my 20s. Not typically bad decisions, like drugs or anything like that, but I just did not evolve my life properly because I was coming out of a very bad environment. And like, yeah, my parents could be there and be like, haha, we told you you would make all these mistakes. Well, I made all these mistakes because I wasn't properly directed and I was abused. And yeah, I made these mistakes. But now the next generation will make less mistakes. And
You
it's about
were you were in. I don't know what all
You're
this.
bubbling, Vincent. Just to let you know, we
I'm
can't hear you.
bubbling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're bubbling. It's very it's kind of like what happens half the time when I'm talking to you guys. I got a new headset thing. I think you're just a little bit far from the Wi-Fi.
No, I'm here. But if you can't hear me, I'm gonna go because I've tried dropping out and coming back in. So there's obviously something wrong with my signal. Um,
You can't just put the phone a little bit closer.
my phone is right next to me.
No, I mean the phone next more close to the Wi-Fi. Are
I'm
you,
right. I mean, I'm like less than 10 feet away from the Wi-Fi. I don't think that's it.
well, just move like 2 steps to the left or something. Sometimes that works.
Can you hear me better now?
You're still bubbling.
You're still bubbling, but I can
Yeah,
hear you.
I mean, I'm less than now. It's right on top of the Wi-Fi. It's not the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
It's not the Wi-Fi. I'll talk to you guys later then.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Vincent. These connections aren't so great sometimes.
This seems to be a new thing with Vincent. He didn't have these issues before, but
Well,
he's the only one who's bubbling.
Yeah, usually I'm bubbling. I mean,
Hmm.
usually I'm a little bit, the noise is coming from my side. I don't know if it's going through, like maybe going through too many programs to get to your show. Like maybe using the links. I don't know.
Hmm. But I suppose we should try and address what he said about. Well, the thing is, really, non-parents wouldn't get as much respect as married parents. I mean, that is a hierarchy, the moral hierarchy that I envisage that is part of the patriarchy that, was able to sustain married people because they would know they were the most privileged class. So that's why people wanted to do it. You did those things in order to be rewarded with status and stuff. Well, gay people were at the bottom of the heap, and the unmarriageable men and women were lower than married parents, and that is how it should be, even if we ourselves are not in the favored groups. Let's admit that. And we don't need female prime ministers. I don't think we're better off because we have female prime ministers, or I think it's about time. And I say this as a woman.
Well, you can't go back in time,
No.
and you can't recreate the past. But traditional marriage is what proved, was the tried and true way that built civilizations. And right now we have a civilization in decay.
Yeah,
So,
we have a civilizational crisis, and our leaders should be able to understand the problem. We shouldn't be the ones having to tell them this sort of thing, and they won't listen. What's wrong with them? This sort of thing should already have been anticipated by the people in charge. I mean, I feel like I'm a child saying to my parent that, you know, Dad, you're drunk. You shouldn't go out. You shouldn't drive. This is what it feels like to me. And they're ignoring me because they don't see the problem of.
well, they're not acting like leaders. No, I mean, nobody wants to act like a leader that's going to try to sway public opinion towards anything except, some little war or something they want to indulge in. You know, they're not trying to lead society into a better place. They're not
But
thinking like that. They don't want to think like that. They don't
but
care.
yes, but this is all the problem is also the structure of society. So in a patriarchy, you would get all these sort of, you know, okay, let's assume that women can't vote. So the men would vote for, you know, they would choose, the beta males would choose an alpha male, and he would have ultimate responsibility, and and this was how it worked. And there was a definite hierarchy. But now, you know, we don't know who is in charge. We literally do not know who is pulling the strings behind Biden or Boris Johnson or any of the other leaders. We don't know who's in charge. It's some nameless person who's, you know, probably some, you know, government advisor that we don't know about. And that's why we don't know who to take our troubles to, because we don't know who's in charge. Because, you know, okay, if I bring up China, you know, people are going to laugh. But I mean, the idea was that China was an empire, and if you had any problem with the local officials and how they were, you know, ruling you, you go to the emperor to complain. That was, you know, at least they thought they knew who the emperor was, right? And I guess the local officials who didn't want to be complained about would try and stop you or something. But you know, that was, you know, that kind of idea. But you know, we don't know who our leaders are, not really, because you know, Biden may not be there for much longer, and after he's gone, he'll say, well, it wasn't anything to do with me, it wasn't my, you know, it was the problem was inherited by me from previous, you know, administrations, and he would be, well, telling the truth. And this is the nature of democracy itself. You know, we can blame Jews or whoever we usually blame, but it is a systemic problem about how we choose our leaders, and we refuse to admit it because democracy has become something sacred. But if we go back in history, we would know that democracy didn't last that long in Athens. It didn't last that long in Rome. And we still haven't figured out, you know, what the best kind of, you know, government would be, because, you know, even in the Bible, there is a kind of, you know, ambiguity about whether the Jews should even have asked for a king at all. You know, they couldn't follow the rules, and then they saw the Gentiles and their kings, and they thought, well, sounds fun, let's go for it. And God kind of said, well, are you sure? Because kings can make you, well, they can recruit you to fight their wars and get things wrong and, you know, do terrible things. But they said they didn't care, and you know, off they went, and they had a king, and they didn't have many good kings, did they? According to their history, King Solomon was their best king, and after he died, Israel was already in decline, and it hasn't worked out in Europe either, because Europeans don't really know what they are. Americans know their republic, the French know their republic, but the British, what are they? I don't think they even know. You know, who actually governs us? And what is the point of the Queen if she doesn't really, she's never been to school, she's never passed any exam, she only does what her advisors tell her to do, which is probably why she's lasted so long. Imagine if she wanted to ask a few questions and decided to defy her advisors, she wouldn't be around. And that's why Charles has always had a bad press, because he was asking too many questions. And the British actually believed that he would be a terrible king because he asked too many questions. And he actually did say nice things about Islam. He said, you know, follow Islam, you know, to save the world, or words to that effect. But
well, I don't think anyone believed him when he said that. Believed he really believed that.
Well, he has always taken an interest in philosophical matters. You know, Lawrence van der Post. I mean, you know, okay, he's been known to write to newspaper editors asking them questions and that story came up suddenly, and they were thinking it was a really terrible thing. But actually, I thought, well, it's a good thing. I would have done the same thing if I were in his position. But and of course he should, because he's a man in a position of power. So why wouldn't he be interested in government policy? And why should his reputation be trashed just for taking an interest in these things? And what is the point of being royalty if you can't take an interest in these matters and express your view, even though it is unpopular or even wrong? And what is the point of being the son of the Queen when in fact you're just treated like a Californian or a Floridian because you had sex with an American who was 17 in 2001, I think it was, in the UK, where it's not a crime because the age of consent is 16. So he wasn't committing a crime, but he's treated as if he was a Californian or Floridian where the age of consent is 18. So it makes no sense, to even be a member of the royal family anymore, and you certainly don't have freedom of belief because if you were any religion other than Anglican, you won't be inheriting the throne. So it makes no sense to be a member of the royal family anymore.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why there's any royalty left in Europe.
Sentimentality.
Honest, well, yeah, but I just don't. I don't know. I can't relate to it. It makes no sense.
Exactly. Maybe the Russians were right because they thought they would do it all in one fell swoop. So nobody would be saying, oh, here's a member of the royal family still around. But anyway, there's no interest in Russia in reviving, the Romanovs or anything like that. And China got rid of their dynasty, imperial dynasty last century because they knew it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we don't even know that we've got exactly the wrong kind of government. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
Oh, there's another little thing there. Look at there. Hi.
Hi. Wait.
Amanda is Muslim.
Oh, nice.
And did I hear a cat?
No, that is my daughter.
Okay.
And she's walking around, and she just hit her foot, and she was like, "Ow!"
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that woman. Now your
Yes.
name came up on the screen. Oh, yes, it's that woman. That woman. Yes. Okay. That's nice to hear you.
I don't have much to say. I'll just listen until I have something to say, and mute myself and listen to the stream. And then if I have a thought, I'll say it.
Okay.
So carry on.
Okay. What would we say? Oh yes, I was saying that the Western nations are having an identity crisis because they don't know if they are a republic or a monarchy, particularly the British. I don't think they know who they are. A lot of Britons actually want to be Americans. A lot of the working classes, they imitate American patterns of speech, and because they watch so many cop shows, and they want to be American because it's probably easier for them to imagine themselves being American than to imagine themselves being a member of the British middle class. So really, the British have no culture anymore. We have Halloween. We just have all the stuff that you have, and the emergency number in the UK has always been 999, but because so many Britons watch American cop shows, they think it's 911. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they have no idea about their history. They don't even know the order of the kings and queens of England. And what you said to me the other day about Americans asking you how many congresses there are.
How many houses of Congress? Yeah, they have
Yes,
no
how many
idea.
houses. Yeah, and well, I think, because if you don't know who you are kind of like Oedipus Rex, or those, children or parents who had sex with each other, and they meet their half brothers and half sisters and have sex with them, and
One of the founding fathers, I don't remember which one now. He said that there was no reason for public school, no function for public school other than to teach the political system, and that is the last thing they teach now. He saw no point.
Why?
Because if you don't,
it's so exceptional.
They don't want. They just do not. Whoever it is that's making Biden hop his hop, whatever it is, these forces, they don't want the people to know how to even use the political system that's set up. I would say that I don't think right now I don't think most Americans have even read the Constitution. They talk about whether something's constitutional or not, but they haven't read it. I've read it, but I don't remember it. I don't understand it. I'd have to look at it and stuff. But they're not making an argument based on the Constitution either when they start saying this isn't constitutional. They don't even know what they're talking about anymore.
Well, because I see so many Americans, who are angry about the government, and I said, "Oh, but what you said is un-American. Are you really wanting a king? Well, that's un-American. Don't you believe in free speech? That's un-American because of your First Amendment." But they don't care. It's like it's whatever I feel like, whatever.
We have a school system. We have a school system over here that for the last 2 generations has been brainwashing people into being passive when they're aggressed on.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Finland has something similar there. If someone attacks a woman in Finland, she can't fight back, or she's going to go to jail too.
That's so crazy. You see, I just happen to be old enough to remember a Finnish girl I knew, and her boyfriend, and they were getting married, and then she had beautiful flaming red hair, and then she went back to Finland, and then she got married, and then she came back and she had short hair, and I said, "Well, what happened to your beautiful hair?" And she said, "I had to have it cut off because that's our tradition in Finland. We cut our hair off once we're married." I know they don't do that sort of thing anymore, but this was something within my living memory. Anyway.
Right, it's during your memory, yeah. Yeah, I don't. This is how did a culture that they just tell people to be so passive. And I remember, I didn't finish college, but I did go in college. I remember this college professor who was talking about that people couldn't affect the change, and I was like, well, why couldn't they? Why can't they just not do it? And then he was sort of blinking at me. He was basically telling a whole class of what would, I'm not saying we were a class of future leaders, but it was like a political science class. And he's telling them all that you can't fight against the system. But nobody has explained the system. If you look around, nobody even understands what it is anymore. Do they understand lobbies? Do you understand the senators? Do you understand that? They don't understand that. And then you've got this voting mess going on with these machines.
No, I suppose if you think like a lawyer, then you would be, thinking in the way that you would be thinking. You're saying the rules allow me to do this and that, and therefore I'm going to, use this rule and that rule and whatever. It's just to solve the problem, to get my way, or whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, you have to look at the rules. You have to look at the rules because if you don't, you can't figure out what you need to do to have the rules help you or to go against the rules. Nobody knows what the rules are. Nobody. You can't. Okay. You look in Judaism, like when they go to the yeshiva, the first thing they're discussing is how to get around the law. This is the law. How can you follow the law and get around it? Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so the
They
thing,
think like lawyers from the beginning.
well,
But you have to
they
know what the
encourage
law
us.
is in order to try and get around it.
Yes, that's the thing. That's how they're thinking of it. And so they think like that. And then there's the idea you can just tell people the law. And then there's the idea of saying there's a law and nobody even knows what it is
Well,
or what it's
yes,
based
this
on.
is this is the thing. They made all these strange rulings that are saying, yeah, yeah, but no, ruling. So you don't really know whether it's yes or no, because
They don't know what the
they'll
rule
say
is in the first
yes,
place.
but, and there's a whole list of exceptions that you can't remember or is so vaguely phrased, or no, but a list of exceptions vaguely phrased, and they're doing it on purpose to confuse us. So it needs to be more clearly stated, or nobody will know their way around, not even lawyers, because one of the cardinal rules about legal action is that a professional. A lawyer being professional would advise his client not to begin an action if he doesn't think that the client has a 75% chance of winning. If it's 50-50, you tell the client not to bother, because he's going to end up losing his money and get mad at you. And now there isn't even this rule, you see. So everything. So I think we're just being driven mad, because every time we ask a question, the answer is always maybe, and that's why you get so much mental illness. Because we just don't know what is black or white anymore. Everything's grey. It's yeah, but no. And it's deliberate. It's deliberate because you know what? We were talking, I mean, Vincent earlier was talking about, women, being in charge. I'm
Being
afraid a lot of women.
unhappy. He was talking about women being unhappy because, they're just miserable because men were in charge. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're saying, but if it hadn't been for feminism, women would not rule. But it's actually a bad sign that Margaret Thatcher actually was ruling, because she was the only man in her cabinet, as the joke goes. She was the only man around,
Oh,
and
right.
you know, and of course, your enemies would be thinking, oh, they've got to make a female leader. What's wrong with the men? They must be ripe for invasion. The men must be weak and stupid. That's how traditional societies thought. And look at all the female prime ministers. It's like, okay, Sweden and Finland, who are being roped into NATO, the women, the leaders, I mean, the president. And Finland have this sort of really weird system about, three people kind of, representing the government, just to make it confusing. Like, well, who's actually the prime minister? And we don't really know. I mean, there's somebody speaking for defense and somebody else speaking, for something else, and they're always different people. What's going
So
on?
a Trinity government, sort of, huh?
Yeah, kind of triumvirate, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can keep passing the responsibility around. It's like, yeah, they're just going to keep passing the parcel of blame, and then when everything goes, when the balloon goes up, they'll say, oh, I thought you were in charge of this thing, and then oh no, I thought you were in charge, or this sort of thing is going to happen. I can imagine when they when the bad thing has happened and they're trying to avoid the blame. So I'm afraid, this one party state idea, whatever you think of Hitler, he actually looked at the parliamentary system as it was being practiced in Vienna, and was saying, well, nobody's really responsible for anything. All these bad policies and all these people who decide on these policies, and they don't really know anything, and they just pander to these groups. I mean, because one of the things he was saying about what happened in the Austrian Empire was that here's the dominant German-speaking group in the Austrian Empire, but because of the operational parliamentary democracy, they always had to sell something to get some minority to vote for them in order to be voted into office. And it's not just confined to Vienna, it's confined to, it's spread out everywhere. And of course, the biggest group in any society would be the women, and the women will be the most, easily bribed group. So you say, we're going to protect you, we're going to raise taxes to give you stuff. They get they get voted in, and then more of these policies happen until you get where you are. And I would say that's a problem. I mean, some people want to blame Jews, okay, but I'm saying, this is a problem.
Yeah, what's being dangled right now in my state is that, vote for me, and after the election, I'll give you a $400 gas card.
Yeah.
That's actually, we're gonna sell our votes for $400. That's how much they think of the people in this country, because the men have been behaving so weakly. When all those truckers started driving around Canada and stuff, that was great. That was great. The truckers did that. At least it showed there's still some men here. One year, I don't remember the year. All these farmers got in tractors and drove tractors to Washington, D.C. Gobs and gobs of tractors were all around the White House. And they just said, look, we're here. You know what I mean? I don't remember the outcome of all that and everything, but it was outstanding. That's a lot of gas and tractors. I mean, that were all tractors coming across the United States going there, but still the farms have lost control. We got Bill Gates owning a lot of it, and the corporations and stuff. But it's laziness. It's everything.
Wasn't like a few months ago.
Hello.
So yeah, I'm here. It reminded me of a few months ago. I saw something. I think in France, a bunch of farmers went and they dumped manure in front of a government building, and it was just full. It was disgusting. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
I don't know what they were protesting or what the reason was, but or if it was even effective. But I know it got their attention when when they did that. So.
Well, was that recently or a few years ago?
Yeah, it was recently. Probably last summer. I saw that on Twitter. I saw a video of it. It was in France.
Right.
Well, I know in the United States, I do know this, that before the Vietnam War, when you watched TV and you were watching children's show, I mean, besides showing, the idea that a nuclear family would be nice, or the sad kid because one of his parents died or something like that, right? It showed the idea constantly of doing the right thing. And after the Vietnam War, or, after people were all over the place during that war protesting. They blocked off a naval postgraduate school. I mean, people were all over the place against that war. The people really did rise up against that war. After that is when we saw all these stories and stuff in the media, kind of like floating morality, and there was no more encouragement to do the right thing. I don't think anyone is encouraged to do the right thing anymore, because no one is even told what the right thing is anymore. You understand? Except that we're supposed to be so accepting of somebody else's feelings. That's the right thing. You accept their feelings, except for conservative feelings, obviously, right? We're supposed to accept everyone's feelings and change our whole behavior so that nobody feels bad. There's no conflict. But it used to be that American children were brought up with the idea that you had to do the right thing, that you had to be honest if you were questioned. I mean, this was what media was brainwashing you with, right? Because media brainwashes. This is what we were told. constantly by media. Now everything is don't respect authority, all this stuff. There's nothing about doing the right thing. Nothing about standing up and putting yourself out of a way to get people to understand an injustice. None of this. Instead, it's a injustice based on somebody's feelings got hurt or what could cause the most chaos. You know
Which
what
is
I
a
mean?
feminine thing
But
to,
this
to
was after
elevate emotions.
But this was after the Vietnam War. It turned into this in the media. I remember watching the shows before, I remember watching the shows before Vietnam. And I remember, and during Vietnam, everything started getting, hell no, we won't go, that kind of thing, and all that. But it was people thought, people were taught up until that war that they had to do the right thing, even if it meant self-humiliation to yourself. You had to fess up. You were being told to fess up and do the right thing, right? That was what was being taught. And then they had the civil rights movement and all that stuff, which was people trying to do the right thing, and Black people saying, look, we need a piece of the pie, we want some of our stuff. You had Martin Luther King and all that. And then, they had Malcolm X, and everyone was like, oh, the white people, oh no, we can't have Malcolm X here. Martin Luther King doesn't look so bad. We're going to go be a little bit more mellow and be a little bit on his side now, and then you had George Wallace just, not, ranting and raving his racist stuff. But the idea to do the right thing doesn't even exist, because what you're being told essentially is that there is no right thing. Morality is so floating, there is no right thing. And if you don't know what the right thing is, you can't stand up for it. And if you're not being told to stand up for the right thing, you're sitting there watching, and then you're just running around being emotional, jumping on these things about whose feelings are being hurt.
So you're talking about moral relativism. That was the beginning of it all.
Well, it looked to me like real effort to not have a situation again where the population could rise up against a war like that. I mean, that was in the streets when they were against Vietnam here. That was all over the place. People out in the street protesting and all that. I mean, that wasn't just a few people or a few little meetings. Blockaded the Naval Postgraduate School when people, and these were young students. People were going crazy over that. And then you had, you had that incident at Kent State where the National Guard shot students. Right on campus, was shooting them on campus, protesting against the war. But why they changed it? Why did they change it? Because it's easier to control a population of people who don't know what the right thing is. They don't know what it is. They're not being told to do that. And they're being told they can't fight against government. It's such a profound, wide attack against it. Against people. The government has become the enemy to the people.
Carol, did you ever look into the Jefferson Bible?
No, I was going to order it one time. They sell it on Amazon. I did kind of look in the bind. I'm having a really bad time with my eyesight right now. I have to see doctors. So I didn't get it, but it was a Bible he had, and he cut, he put a lot of notes in it.
Well, he cut out, all the Pauline epistles, didn't he?
The Bible. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the Quran, the Jefferson Quran. He seemed to be a thinker, Jefferson. But there was a lot. I think there was a lot of thought in how, if you're going to dump the monarchy and you're up against the church, what could Christianity look like and this stuff. I think he thought about a lot of that stuff, but I don't know him. I'm not a great reader. I didn't get a great education.
You read a lot of books that I've never heard of, so you sound like a reader.
I like to read, but it's so eclectic, and it wasn't a concentrated study on anything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll pick up something and read it and stuff. But I think it's been a horrible disservice that the founding fathers were not taught in the classrooms.
Yeah, I think it's shocking.
It is shocking.
Because I try and an American, I'll talk to him about the founding fathers and stuff. And it's like,
no, it's just very vague, very vague. And even when I was in school, not much was said about them. There was certainly no reading what they actually wrote. There was none of that when I was in school. Because I was in a dummied down education put out by the government that wasn't worth going to. I remember one time we were Catholics. And my parents were talking about putting one of my siblings in the Catholic school. Mm-hmm. I was so mad, Claire. I really wanted to get out of public school. And I was like, really wanted to go to that Catholic school. And anyone looking at me would have thought I was the last person that would have wanted to go to a Catholic school. And I was talking about this with one of my sisters recently. She said, well, did you ever tell them? I said, well, no, I never occurred to me to tell them, please put me in the Catholic school, me. I couldn't stand the chaos that was in public school. Mm-hmm. But the clothing I wore was pretty hippie looking and stuff. I mean, people just probably thought I was, like I had one teacher accuse me, well, what are you doing? Are you out in the back smoking pot or something? I was like, no. What? No, you jerk. But we weren't taught this fascinating stuff about the founding fathers and stuff. These people were real thinkers. Thinkers. Like, how can we create a new nation? And come over here. We're going to create a new nation, and we're going to have some idea of getting rid of this monarchy and the church overbearing on us, but still experience our Christianity in this way. I think it has a lot to offer. I think Muslims have a lot to learn by reading this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's a loss. It's a loss. And nobody knows it. Nobody sees it. Nobody realizes what great men they were. All they know is George Washington cut down a cherry tree. He was a hemp farmer, and he had fake teeth, right? Mm-hmm. I read this one book that was pretty fascinating.
I think it's trying to hide something actually quite Islamic about American history, because I keep going on about the White House Quran. There is a White House Quran that Americans are just sort of so horrified when they discover there is a White House Quran. Yeah. That Jefferson owned it, and it isn't that. So he bought two copies. He bought one when he was a student, because I guess he was interested in these things. It's on record which bookshop in New England that he bought it from. I can't remember now. But anyway, his library burned down, and guess what? He bought another copy of the Quran after his library burnt down, because it was so important to him. And what was the Jefferson Bible about? What did he mean when he cut out all the extra bits that he didn't think should have even been in the Bible? What is he trying to do? It's a mystery. Well, I think I know what the answer is, but I don't think Americans seem at all interested. It's like, oh yeah, we don't know what he was really trying to do, and we don't really care. And I'm saying, but there's the White House Quran. The First Amendment is based on, chapter 2, verse 256. What else could it have been on? He read it, he understood it, he absorbed the ideas. The First Amendment is actually Islamic.
Well, if you get rid of the Apostle Paul out of the Bible, you've undermined the total authority of the church as it developed.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
But that was what the American Revolution was about. It was just saying, look, king, we're not going to follow your religion just because you're the king. We're going to have our own religion if that's what we want.
And we're going to keep our own money. We're keeping our own money, and you can shove off. That was the idea. But when you look at something and dissect it and try to undermine the total authority to something, that means something, like why they were focusing on that. And if you get rid of Paul, if you believe in a Christianity that does not believe in Paul, You do not believe in the entire development of the Christian church as it, as it manifested in the Orthodox and Roman Catholic authority. It goes beyond just having a Protestant.
The apostolic succession and all that.
Yeah. It's a total undermining of that. If you think about it.
Good. That's what you want. That's what we want, isn't it, Carol? Come on, that's what we want.
Yeah. But you can't do it with a bunch of people who aren't thinking. People have to start thinking. The school system has made people so stupid. And I'm a product of a really bad education. And I'm mad about it. I didn't have the dedication when I was young to force myself to, I did read a lot, but I wish I had real teachers. Just real teachers in my classroom. I remember I had a couple of teachers that taught their subject. I thought they were like God's gift to my whole school experience just because they tried to teach their subject. It was so chaotic when I was in school. This excuse of creating such a dummied down education of graduates who not only don't know the political system, they have no idea there's 2 houses of Congress and they have a diploma, and they can't, they're useless. They're useless in thinking. They're useless in being able to think. You see what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden you want to liberate these people and you want to give them a few ideas and do stuff. Well, can they think their way out of a paper bag? No. Can they think themselves out of, can they look at a problem and say, God damn it, no one else is doing it, but I'm going to do something to save my kids. Try to save them and try to figure out what to do instead of sitting around saying, our friend, let's wait 2 generations and see what happens. Now, does that mean everyone has to be a social, an activist of conservatism and stuff? I don't know. But if you can't even understand some of the ideas this country is in, and everyone's just talking about whose feelings getting hurt, these people aren't equipped to do anything. That they are basically dummied up people who cannot make a good decision because they don't even know what to compare it to. It's awful, Claire.
Yeah, and it's because most Westerners don't understand their own history. It's okay. You could sort of think, oh, well, if you're German and you lost the war, maybe you have a weird version of your own history. And if you're Japanese, I don't even know what they learn about their history. But there's some weird stuff going on in, the learning of British history. And well, I would have thought, Americans would be, very proud of their very interesting and exceptional history. And it's a shame that so few people know about it. But I think it's been deliberately suppressed.
That's what I believe.
I meant to ask you.
The government itself, why?
Yeah.
Why has government itself suppressed our history?
Yes. I meant to ask you if you had heard of a writer called Napoleon Hill. Have you heard of him?
No. You were a whole new range of books and authors.
But he wrote the great granddaddy of self-help books called Think and Grow Rich. And have you heard of that title?
Well, no, because if I'd read it years ago, I might be rich now. But no, I never heard of it.
Well, my father was into American self-help books. I mean, this is part of the great American self-help tradition, I guess. I know the Victorians also did it, and what I thought was interesting about that was so I knew that this book that my father wanted me to read that I never read, and then eventually I saw a special edition of it. And I thought, I'll get it because they've made it look so nice and whatever. And so I read it, and then I realized that this guy was actually talking about Islam and saying he wished that the Americans had accepted the bargain or the offer of Islam. I mean, really, American history is full of these Islamic footprints, and I know a lot of Americans will just deny it because they're Islamophobes. But since you're Muslim, I thought you might be, interested.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill. What was the name of the book again?
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
I mean, I'll send you a link of that
Okay.
post on my blog with the relevant, bit about Islam that he mentioned, which in subsequent editions, in the other cheapo editions, was just omitted. It was omitted because I guess a lot of Christians in America didn't want it getting out that the founding fathers were proto-Muslims. And I say proto-Muslims in that, if you believe in the Abrahamic God and you want to remain a Gentile, but you deny the Trinity, you are closer to being Muslim than you are to being Christian.
Well, I think an argument certainly can be made that they absolutely did not believe in the authority of the church, period. They did not believe that was good for them. The authority of the church.
It was terrible for Europeans. I mean, they had to be burnt at the stake when they denied the Trinity because it was blasphemy.
Right.
So the last person to be burnt at the stake was in 1612. And his name was Edward Whiteman. And the last person to be executed for blasphemy was a 20-year-old Scotsman called Thomas Aikenhead in 1697.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very interesting that less than 80 years later, the American Revolution happened because people just couldn't stand it anymore because they were told to believe in this nonsense that couldn't be explained by anybody. It made no sense. And, I think the ideologues that rejected the monarchy were implicitly rejecting Christianity, but, obviously not all at once. And there were, strange judgments in the US Supreme Court about whether America is a Christian nation, because there was this tension between Americans thinking that they had no established religion, which meant they have no official religion, and there was some immigration case because that was what it was. The Church of the Holy Trinity basically paid for the passage of a priest in England to come to America, and he was considered a foreigner, and was that some law about importing foreign labor way back even then had been broken, and that was what the court case was about, saying could this man is clearly a foreigner because he's an Englishman and he's been his passage was paid for to come to work in this church. So he shouldn't have been, he shouldn't have been imported, or something should have happened to him. And then there was this judgment by Justice Brewer saying, ho, 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 of course we are a Christian nation, but we're not, something like that. Because he wanted both things to be true at the same time. Because I guess a lot of Americans would be upset to be told they weren't even Christian. So he kind of had to, walk the tightrope of saying yes and no at the same time. It's a very interesting judgment. I think you'll be interested in it.
Yeah, where's this judgment at? What's it? Brewer? Judge Brewer?
Justice Brewer.
Justice Brewer.
Who was a judge of the Supreme Court. It's a Wikipedia thing anyway.
Oh, okay, Wikipedia. I can write that down.
Mm-hmm. But way back even then, in the 1800s, Americans were asking themselves if they were a Christian nation or not. Is America part of Christendom or not? But I think that's important because because basically, if you look at Christian history, the first time when the Romans actually said, our imperial cult is failing, so we better use another religion. Hopefully people will believe it better than the old one, which nobody believed in anyway, because the old imperial cult was a Roman emperor died, he has become God. Only dead emperors were deified. But of course, living emperors were given the utmost respect. So obviously, lots of Romans and lots of the Roman political establishment didn't really believe in it, and there were terrible cases of corruption, and that was why there were all these wars in the time of Constantine the Great. That there was even the year of the 5 emperors, in which five men tried to be emperor of Rome. So, but anyway, in 380 A.D., the Edict of Thessalonica adopted the Trinitarian version of Christianity, and then it also became illegal to be any other kind of Christian, because actually Constantine and his son were Arians who believed in a version of the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses, basically, that Jesus was, divine, but not of co-equal status as God, that Trinitarians are supposed to believe in. But anyway, I mean, this has been Christian history, that it was always used to support the divine right of kings to rule.
Because you had to have the masses believe that it was God's destiny that they were ruling over you. So you had to anoint them and all this stuff, so that you would understand it was God's destiny that they were king, and it was your destiny to be a peon.
Yeah, and then he said, don't worry, just obey the law of the land, whatever law that the king passes, and you'll be okay. If you're upset about something, don't worry, just pray to Jesus and you'll get to heaven.
Wait for the Messiah. Wait for the Messiah. Wait for someone to come save you later from this horrible thing.
Yeah. So that was what kept the masses quiet, because Christianity was called the religion of women and slaves, and obviously women and slaves had to accept their lot in life, because they're not supposed to. Well, it wouldn't work if they tried to fight it, because of their low status and their weaker physique. They would never win, so they just had to accept whatever fate had given them. But anyway, it's if because there were so many slaves, I suppose it must have seemed a good idea to the Romans to push this idea on the Romans, and after the collapse of the Roman Empire, I mean, there was no better idea around. But I think if Constantine had the option of Islam, when he wanted, think, we Romans, we need a new religion, and Islam had been an option, I'm sure he would have chosen Islam. But anyway, it didn't last that long. 380.
Except Islam also emphasizes no monarchy. Muslims emphasize not having a monarchy.
Well, exactly. A caliph is a constitutional dictator. Which is the way, isn't it? So that's why these Muslims are always talking about the Islamic Republic. They never talk about kings, because their constitution, that's not what Islam is about. Because the rightly guided caliphs were not kings, and only kings had the right to pass on their leadership, when they died, to their male relation, and this didn't apply to Muslims who I guess chose their caliph in a different way. And this was better, and this was what I think the American Republic tried to replicate, but didn't quite dare tell American citizens of the time, because they would have gone ape, wouldn't they?
I don't know. It's hard to know really what they were thinking without. I never read what they really wrote. It's hard to know really what their thinking was.
Well, we know
But
there
it
was
was
a lot of
definitely
Christian.
it was definitely undermining, the power of the church and the power of the idea that the church was going to somehow be involved with choosing the government. That they were definitely creating a government that was separate from that whole idea, and that was the whole idea of separation of church and state, obviously, and separation of a monarchy. George Washington said he couldn't run for the third term because that would be creating a monarchy. You just can't do that. And the whole idea of a president only being 2 terms was from him. That was his view on it, that is just making someone into some kind of a king to go to the third one. And I don't know, maybe he had some other reasons and he was just trying to be nice, but now too. But they're thinking they did not want to create another monarchy on either. You know what I mean? But they definitely have some thoughts.
I don't think it would have created another monarchy because, okay, you get elected for a third or even a fourth term and then you die. Well, nobody thinks your son is going to inherit the presidency, or it should be obvious from the Constitution that that's not going to happen because, the president is not the monarch. But I mean, we know of countries such as North Korea who actually, are monarchies unofficially, because that's what, the Kims are, in fact, from father to son and uncle and that kind of thing. But okay, it's just a little country, and there will be powerful families, but for a big country like America, I guess the people wouldn't stand for it. Or they would know that, just the idea of a king would be un-American because America is a republic.
Well, I guess all I know is George Washington said that, and that's why he didn't run that, and that's what was the stated reason he didn't run the third term. And
but it's not set in stone, I don't think. I mean, because you won't just become a monarchy just because some president hung around for 3 terms.
Oh no, but you can't have a president can't go through 3 terms here. That's it. They can only do 2 terms of office in this country.
Okay.
They can't do it. But it's from that precedent. It's from him.
Right.
It's from that precedent, and they decided that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah. But I mean, I know Xi Jinping were trying to sort of change their rules that he can stay for 10 years if he wants or whatever. So I don't know if it's a good idea for China or not. But I'm kind of saying that if China were Muslim, then Xi Jinping would be caliph because China is a republic now, because their monarchy crashed and burned in 1911. So that didn't work. Because if you run a monarchy, the pool of talent for the next leader is very, very small indeed, and you're always going to get a dud one, even if you get a good one this time, because the son's just going to be useless and spoiled and whatever, and I guess that was what happened to the last dynasty of the Qin dynasty, and yeah, there was this dowager empress who was terrible and was never meant to be empress, but she somehow wangled her way to the top because the king was weak and the son was weak, and the horror stories stem from her inability to make decisions, or she made them too late, the reforms were too little, and blah blah blah. But I guess Elizabeth I did all right. But maybe that's unusual. Maybe that's unusual. Maybe there was no need. Okay, if Henry VIII had already been Muslim, he wouldn't have needed to, behead and divorce his wives, would he?
Well, yeah, no, he wouldn't have. No, I think he wouldn't have.
Yeah, because he got lucky on it. The third wife gave him what he wanted. Jane Seymour, the third wife, gave him the son that he sought. So
yeah, and he died though. But yeah,
but the others were too old or something. There were two.
The first one was his brother's wife.
Yes,
and,
Catherine of Aragon.
Yeah, she was a little bit older, and then she just couldn't make any kids. I really, it's you don't know because medicine wasn't what it is today, so I don't really know why exactly they couldn't, didn't get one, and then but it does kind of look like maybe the problem might have been a little bit on Henry's side to me.
Didn't he have all of these mistresses and stuff? I suppose he would have done like the Turks and had like a harem and everything and had all of these women and just to create a son. I imagine that's what he would have done, hearing everything about him, how he was a womanizer when he was younger and even until he was middle-aged. Because that the Turks they used to I'm sure you know what they used to do. They had these harems full of women, and then when the Sultan would die, then they would all kill each other, and the last one standing, he would be the ruler.
Which must have been enormously destabilizing.
Yeah. Then they had then they had these the Sultanate of Women, and they changed it, and then they just started to lock their brothers into these golden cages like birds, and when he would die, then the next one would take his place, or maybe they might kill him. It all depended on their whims and what they were going to do, and then they got rid of the Sultanate of Women.
We're talking about the Ottomans here.
Yeah, we're talking about the Ottomans.
They started doing that. They started doing that to prevent claims against the throne and to have civil war. That's why they started doing that. And then that last Sultan that killed off a whole bunch of them, and it was in the press photographs of all these coffins coming out. That's when they stopped it.
Yeah, but they had the Sultanate of Women, and I think it was Kosem. Maybe she's the one who stopped. She's the one who stopped the fratricide. And it would still happen occasionally, but they would lock them in these cages, and some of them would go insane. So whenever they would get out, whenever they would get their chance to rule, they would just be crazy. Some of them would be insane, and their mothers would or their favorite concubine, she would be the one pulling all the shots. But then they got rid of that, and but after that it was in a steady decline.
Mm-hmm.
And then it collapsed. So you know the story. What's the matter with you?
So nice to hear young voices occasionally.
It's a little buddy. It's a little buddy in the house. A little friend. Cute little friends.
Yeah, that's why I've been on mute most of the time, because she's being very difficult, and she's jealous of the phone.
Well, she likes her mom. She likes mommy to look at. I want my mommy to look at me.
It's mommy's favorite toy.
Yeah. Where's mommy? Okay, well, I actually have to get going here, Claire, because I have to do some other stuff. It was always fun talking to you, and it was nice to meet you, Amanda.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, and assalamu alaikum and goodbye, everybody. Maybe look in the chat and see if anyone said anything mean to me today. Let's see. Somebody hurting my feelings today? I don't know. Oh.
No, I think they've been quite kind. They've been talking about other things.
Well, one person said I sound nice. That's nice. Somebody thinks I'm nice. Let's see.
He's Muslim, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you do sound nice anyway. You do sound nice.
Let's see.
And you'll be starting your own channel soon, won't you?
Well, I'm trying. I don't know if I'm going to be good at this or not. I'm going to try.
You know, you should try Restream. I think it's it's similar to StreamYard, and they have a paid version, but there's also a version. I don't know what they offer with the paid version, but I think that the streaming is unlimited. You just have to be careful where you click when you sign up, that you don't accidentally sign up for a trial and you sign up for the free version. But it's not limited to what, 23 hours or 20 hours like StreamYard. And it's very similar. Yeah. So try looking up a Restream.
Okay.
And maybe they've changed it since I looked at it, but the last time I looked at it, it was a few months ago. It was unlimited hours.
Okay. Where's the Amanda channel? That woman channel.
I don't have time. Yeah, that woman. You know, I always say, like, I want to stream, I want to do this, I want to do that. And well, I'm sure you hear the background right now. I just never get around to it because I'm always busy with the house and with kids and this and that. And you know how it is. You have young kids and you want to do all these things and you just don't get to it.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's how it goes. It just keeps going on like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're just not really the boss.
Well, Twitter's great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just saying Twitter's. I was saying Twitter's great for dipping in and out.
Yeah, you can pop in and out on Twitter. That's like kind of poking around. Yeah, that's good because I stand there and doing something on the stove. I can look at that a couple minutes and then go do something.
Yeah. I think if I ever did stream, like, it would have to be 5 or 10 minute streams and then stop and come back a few hours later and do it again. I don't think I could actually do a real proper stream without interruption unless I stay up all night, and then I'll be useless the next day.
Yeah.
Have you joined MySpace or whatever Twitter Space thing?
Twitter Space, yeah, I had thought about that, but you know, some of the people on there are just so creepy, and I don't know if I want. I feel like YouTube. I mean, anyone can join, but it's a little bit more private than Twitter, and then you get all these freaks that kind of show up. And I don't know. I want to do it, and then I just think I have second thoughts and never get around to it.
This is all new to me. I mean, I knew about YouTube and watching videos, but I had no idea about these live streams and people getting on here and talking like this for hours like this. I had no idea this was even going on until I don't know what I clicked on the Claire's. I think she did something, said something on Twitter, and she was on somebody's feed, and then I went and I was like, what's this? I didn't know what was going on. I was like, well, this is something different. I didn't even know this was going on. I've heard people mentioning it, you know, like, but not exactly what it was. I didn't look into it.
YouTube used to be really wild, but they banned a lot of people, and there's a bunch of censorship now, but it was much more fun before than it is now.
Yeah, I thought YouTube was just people made a video and put it on. You know, and then I started watching last year or something. I'm seeing all these comments on there, and these people are all talking to each other. And I was thinking, why these comments? These people on here talking to each other. I didn't realize it was sort of like a coffee shop that's sort of following itself around, and then other people are saying and all that. Until this, I didn't quite understand why are people posting on these videos like this. I mean, I didn't get the whole picture of what's going on at all. But anyway, that's that for that. So anyway, Assalamu alaikum, goodbye everybody. I gotta go make some food or something. Okay, all right.
Okay, bye.
So did you get the video I sent you yesterday about? I know you're always talking about Henry VIII becoming Muslim and all of this, but were you aware of what was it, King John? And he sent an envoy to Spain. And did you watch that video?
No, I didn't see that video, but I was aware of the story because there's an article about his father, Henry II, who actually threatened to convert to Islam because he was so fed up with the Pope bossing him around. And I know
I
King
didn't.
John had a problem with the Pope.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Henry II, but yeah, he'd sent somebody and to Spain, and it was, well, I don't know. I already forgot the story. I have so much going on all the time. I watch something, I forget. I have to watch it again or really think about it to remember it. But it was interesting. I didn't know about that. It's kind of like it makes you wonder, like about alternative history. What would have happened? What could have happened? What would the world be like now if that had happened?
Yeah, and I don't think people understood, why Henry II was saying he was going to convert to Islam, because I don't think a lot of people know about this idea of cuius regio eius religio, which is Latin for whoever is the king, that will be his religion, meaning that the subjects of the king had to follow the religion of the king. And so when Henry said, I'm going to convert to Islam because I'm fed up with you, Pope, the rule would have allowed him to say, well, my subjects are now almost screw you, Pope, that kind of idea. And but of course, he didn't quite dare. You can't really change people's beliefs, overnight without, getting trouble. So so it didn't happen. But that was the idea in his head when he threatened to convert to Islam.
Yeah, of course. I imagine like all of the armies of Europe may have marched on to England if he had tried that. I'm not sure how well that would have worked out for him, because they really used to get worked up about things like that, and it wasn't that long, or maybe it was around the time of the Crusades. I'm not familiar with the years, but it was
the 12th century.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That wouldn't have worked out very well for him if he
No,
had tried that.
no. But that that was I think the germ of his idea. And his son, who was King John, did have a lot of problems. He's only had a problem with the Pope, which subject him to something called an interdict, which means certain services couldn't be held, which meant people would be upset that they might not get to heaven or get the right blessing, and they took those things literally, and they would blame the king, and it was that kind of idea basically. And so King John apparently, because he had so much trouble with the Pope, the story that you told us about King John thinking of going to wherever it was, apparently it was just a rumor, but he got a bad press, I guess, because he thought of converting to Islam, or he threatened to, or something.
Yes, I think it may have been true though, because there was he had sent a monk to Muslim Spain, Al-Andalus. I'm not sure what they called it then. Whatever it was, they had sent him there, and one of the people on the envoy had a hobby of writing everything down. So it's recorded. It's actually recorded. Now I don't know. Maybe they added some things in and took some things out. Stretched the truth a little bit. But I think it's possible that it did happen. But not long. I think like a year after that, the man that they had met, the ruler that they had met in Muslim Spain, he died, and like a few months after that, King John died. So yeah.
I actually haven't watched that video. Would you mind if we watched it together?
Yeah, go ahead, play it. It's kind of silly. It's a little cartoon. I don't even know why it popped up on my feed, but that's what happened.
Great.
And I watched it, and it made me think of you, of some of the streams that you speak about. The same thing.
Right. Be great to watch it together. I nearly missed it if you hadn't mentioned it. Okay. that time England almost converted to Islam.
The glorious forebear of Western civilization, yes, and creator of the chip, the English contribution to world cuisine. There's a little-known story about our dear motherland that you won't find in the school curriculum, and that's the one time England almost converted to Islam. Yes, it's quite a bizarre story, and it starts with our good friend, King John. You see, while being King of England usually came with a number of benefits, unfortunately for John in 1199, having money was not one of them. The previous King of England, John's brother, Richard, aka Richard the Lionheart, aka Brave Daddy, don't call him Dick, he doesn't like that, had been rather liberal with his spending. First, he went off to reclaim Jerusalem in the Third Crusade, with the end result being a mountain of expenses and a grand total of 0 reclaimed Jerusalems. Although, honourable mentions, he did conquer Sicily and Cyprus on the way there. However, on the way back, Richard was imprisoned by the opportunistic Holy Roman Emperor, Henry VI, who really just couldn't resist earning some free money. That little maneuver cost the English crown 2 years of its revenues, thank you very much. And in the end, it was all for naught. For just a few years later, Richard, that is, died of an infected crossbow wound. And thus, jolly old John was left with a lot of land to defend. Remember, England at the time owned vast swathes of what we'd now call France, and precious few resources with which to defend it. What followed was arguably the worst series of defeats in English history. In the span of several years, John lost Normandy, Anjou, and Maine. He got excommunicated by the Pope, and his English vassals would eventually sit him down and get him to sign the Magna Carta. Suffice to say, King John was not having a good time. He was in desperate need of new allies, and so he did what any sensible medieval monarch would do. He expanded his Tinder discovery settings. Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. Oh, bingo! One of the first new matches was Al-Nasir, the Caliph of the Almohads. His Muslim realm stretched across North Africa and into modern Spain, yet it was threatened to the north by France and the rising Iberian kingdoms. Now, while military aid between the two realms would have been logistically difficult, it was theoretically possible, and for John, that was good enough. In 1212, he sent a royal delegation to the Muslim ruler. The man in charge was a curious fellow, Robert of London, a Jewish convert with a love for gold and intrigue. Supposedly, Robert conveyed to Al-Nasir the following offer. King John was ready to swear fealty and to abandon Christianity in favor of Islam, as long as the Muslims were willing to help him reclaim his lost territories in France. It's questionable how receptive the English population would have been to such a radical change, but ultimately things never got that far. For in private, Robert told Al-Nasir that King John was a cruel tyrant who knew only failure. The Caliph rewarded Robert for his honesty and sent the rest of the envoy off empty-handed. When Robert returned to his king, he showed the gifts as proof that he'd had a very productive conversation with the Muslim ruler, for which John rewarded him with even more gifts and a position as abbot of St. Albans. The fact that we even know of this story is because Robert bragged to the wrong person. He told all of this to a monk at his abbey, who happened to have the hobby of writing everything down. Funnily enough, that monk would later write that Robert was eventually caught and exiled for embezzling church funds. But anyway, this whole ordeal ultimately amounted to nothing, for Al-Nasir died a year later at the hands of the Crusaders, with King John himself kicking the bucket not long after. Of course, there are some arguments that Robert had intentionally mistranslated the king's proposal. Perhaps what John was really offering was to merely pay tribute. Some historians even argue that the meeting never took place. Shock horror. Which may very well be the case, though one should never underestimate the power of desperation. Unlike King John, we here at SideQuest intend on being much more successful in our conquest. In fact, I dare say that the conquest of YouTube has been coming along quite nicely these past few weeks. So a big, hearty thanks to you all out there for proudly flying the SideQuest banner. And if you happen to be new here, please make sure to subscribe and to share our videos around, and maybe even consider purchasing a minor title of nobility on our Patreon. They're very hot commodities these days, you know. In any case, as Morgan would say, you gotta keep a watchful eye out over the coming weeks for the next fantastically feudal episode of SideQuest. Cause at Shawshank, Andy never misses an episode.
Okay.
200,000 subs, huh? Maybe
Pretty
you
good.
need to start making cartoons and and put some of those in. Yeah, get your subscription count up.
I just have an exclusive.
Yeah.
My followers are very exclusive. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing right, but it's what's the point of having lots of subscribers if they don't get what? Do they get it? Do they get it? Do they understand?
Maybe they will. Maybe some people will. I mean, you might not get people who agree with everything you say, but you know, take bits and pieces, and I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I once had. Okay, I basically painted. I use a particular color to paint a room. Somebody said she hated it. She hated it so much that it made her ill just looking at it. I remember her saying, and then a few years later, she used the very same color. I was so surprised. So, you know, you never know with people. You know, maybe they just block out that it was your idea, and then, you know, when it emerges, it comes out as their idea that they independently arrived at, and so we don't know.
Yeah.
So I have to think like that.
Maybe she was jealous.
No,
Maybe,
she just
maybe
hated the color.
she hated it. Wow. Well, some people are like that. Like they don't like something, and then maybe it becomes trendy, and they see it presented in a different way. Then all of a sudden they love it. You know, they become a big fan of it. They like it. They want it everywhere. So maybe that's what happened. Did it become more popular after you painted it? Maybe you painted it that color, and a few years later it became more common. Maybe it was in the home and garden magazines and in the stores and stuff. She's like, oh, I like that color. It's the thing, you know. and then she painted her whole house with it, you know.
Yeah, well, it was turquoise actually. So I mean, you know, you either love it or you hate it. But I
That sounds
liked it.
nice. Turquoise. That sounds really nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a sort of fresh color that was sort of distinctive without, you know. Yes, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. But I think, you know, I've heard a few people say, well, actually, I agree with you, but I can't be seen to be agreeing with you publicly because people will hate me too. You know, and you know, I guess I thank them for being so honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, people like Jay, I think he would support it in a heartbeat, but only if it's safe for him to do it. You see, you know, because I remember reading ages ago that you know, new political movements initially find it very hard to get started because everybody will think it's weird and cultish and, you know, whatever, until more and more people support it, and then it becomes trendy.
Yeah, well, you know, like Prophet Muhammad, when he used to pray, some of the children they used to throw food at him, and people would just used to do horrible things and throw dirt at his doorstep. And one woman who was his neighbor, she used to sweep all of her trash on his doorstep every day. I mean it. And now look, so you know, it just sometimes it just takes a while. Maybe in 100 years, someone will find your YouTube stream and be like, that's a great idea. You know, and you'll be like one of those artists who only becomes famous after death. Yeah. So
well, actually, I said 25 years. I'm going to give it 25 years from now, you know, before it takes off. And you know, it's like I always think, you know, come on, you white nationalists, you know, thinking you're going to homeschool your children and your grandchildren into overthrowing the liberal order, you know. I don't know, what are they thinking of? It's so pathetic.
well, I think I told you in the chat. I honestly, and I'm not trying to be cruel or anything, but I honestly think most of the world is just going to have to die
Yes.
before anything straightens out. I mean, like, you're presenting this idea, and I don't agree with everything, but I mean, we can't agree with everything that everyone says. So I mean, that's besides the point. It's I think you have a little bit more faith in people than I do. I think the population is just going to have to dwindle, and people are going to have to witness horrible things before they've had enough. Because look how bad it is now, and people are not fed up. They're not fed up. They're just trying to make things worse and do more ridiculous things every day. Every day I wake up and I see something more stupid from the day before. And I just
where
don't think
you are.
no, I'm not really where I am. It's very quiet here. But in the news and I mean, yeah, in the news and on social media and sometimes here, not so much where I am. I'm not in the city, but yes, here too. Here too, people are ridiculous. And it's like they're insane. They repeat this constant cycle. Like, okay, for example, they have all of these corrupt politicians in office here, who've been in office for years and years and years, and people keep re-electing them, and they think that it's going to change. Things never change. Things get worse. They stay corrupt. They become more corrupt. It's crazy, and people don't learn. It's like they're insane. They don't learn. Get rid of these people. Do something to change it. You know, and they're not doing anything. They just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Well, maybe it will change this time, and it doesn't. And it's basically the same everywhere in the world right now.
Well, I think psychologically, people just don't want to be seen to be supporting, you know, weird new ideas until it's not so weird and not so new, and then you get, you know, better quality people talking about it. I think, you know, that is fundamentally the thing. I mean, an idea has no. I mean, it can't get anywhere unless somebody adopts it and promotes it and propagates it in a way that is appealing, and I think that is a problem. It's hard to make, you know, Islam cool at the moment.
Well, and it's not only that. You know, like people think a lot of things, but people are also like, well, what can I do? You know, everyone feels helpless. It's like, I'm not a one-man army or one-woman army. What can I do? No one's going to listen to me. What am I going to do? Like, I'm just going to, like, what are people going to do? People feel helpless. They feel like, okay, here we are, and we're against all of these tanks and these advanced weapons and these mercenaries and these bodyguards. I mean, we can't do anything to these people, but they still keep electing them. There are no replacements. No one's stepping up. And I don't think there's much of a choice. I think that choices are made, and you have to choose between the choices that are already made for you. And both, and the 2 or 3 or 4 choices out there that are already made, that they present to the people, they're all going to do the same thing anyway.
Yeah, which is why you proposed, changing the system. And I'm saying, look, this one party state idea. It's not just the Nazis, it's not just the communists, it's, not just the fascists. It actually came from Washington. Just read that speech, that you're supposed to have learned in high school. And it's like, I can't be bothered. The language is a bit archaic. I'm too distracted by my phone notifications or my video games or whatever to read it properly. And,
well, they don't even have to read it. They don't even have to read it. They have all of these they can just probably find it read for them on YouTube already. They can, go wash dishes or cook dinner or do whatever, go take a shower and listen to it. But they don't want to.
Yeah.
They would rather listen to something stupid.
Yeah. Because, I guess the language is a bit challenging or something, But you can't just sort of say, oh, this is all wrong, it's all horrible. You have to propose a solution, or people will say, so it hurts, it's bad. We'll talk about something else more cheerful now. But I suppose I think when you engage in dialogue with people, so this is me and Rob Dufour, and he cancelled a few times about this discussion on secular Quranism, and I sort of knew really why he was reluctant to support it or even talk about it, because his position is like, we Muslim converts in the West, nobody listens to us, and if we convert to Islam, we are even lower status than the immigrant Muslims who come, and therefore we're not in a position to support secular Quranism or talk about it because we're so low status. I think that's what he was in fact saying, and then he was talking about the zeitgeist not allowing them to speak in these terms, and of course a lot of Muslims who understand my idea that they're not going to go with it because they don't want to be identified as, radicals and fundamentalists and extremists and whatever label you can imagine the Islamophobes are going to use on them. So it's just easier for them to pretend not to understand or, find some excuse.
Yeah, and I really don't know what a lot of Muslims don't believe in God. They say that they do when they're around everyone. They say yes, I believe in God, and they make sure everyone sees them praying and doing this and doing that. Just like in any religion, I guess, or in any society, they have these things, and virtue signaling, whatever you want to call it. And so I really don't know why they would have a problem with the secular part.
Yeah,
they'll say, oh, secular society. Yeah. They're just going along with everyone, I guess. And they don't want to get chewed out by their family. And because honestly, if I bring up, like, for example, if I bring up secularism to my dad, even though he lives in a secular society, oh no, that never works. You can't, you really can't talk to them. You can't.
I know. So, but I mean, I think white nationalism, they're in a way quite useful because they literally have no idea. So you could interpret 12 years of failure or whatever, or maybe more. I can't remember now. Of nobody supporting it, and I'm saying, well, actually, it's because no, I don't interpret it as failure. It's because nobody can even now can think of anything better. And they're just pretending they have a solution.
I bet you if one of their people came out and proposed that they would listen, I think that they're just not listening to you because of you're a woman and because you're not white. I'll be honest, because I'll tell you why I think this, because whenever I see them like whenever the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan, they were all praising the Taliban. Did you see that on social media? Did you see it?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, based, and they're so based, and this and that, and and you know, like you see them, you see a lot of them like supporting Iran and things Iran does, and all of
Really,
this.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yes, yes, yes. I always see it. I always see it. And but when anyone really wants to be serious and speak about it and present it to them, present the religion to them, they don't want to hear any of it. But because it's never like it's. I think because it's maybe because it's never a white person who does it, and I think it would have to be a white man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be
And
happy for people to steal my idea. Please steal my idea. You know,
yeah,
nothing would make me happier if they did. But it's sort of, well, so far nobody is trying. You know, but I also sort of know that, you know, it's this horrible idea that they're trying to forget about, but which they can't, because I remember how Jen said, you know, spoke of it, and it was like, well, I can't unthink it, but I wish I could.
oh, what was her what was her idea before the periodic table and the 3D periodic table? What was what was her religion?
She was going to
I
create a
don't.
priesthood supporting periodic tableism or entropism, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was basically it. And they would have to know physics, and they could, you know, tell stupid people who don't know physics that they're not, you know, priesthood material, and boss over them and kick them around. That was basically it.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
And then I think a lot of them cottoned on that well, at least Claire has rules. We can read those rules and see how those rules work for us. You know, you only have your oral tradition, Jen. So, and which you don't seem to have received it yet, because, you know, so I you know, I think they saw through her.
Uh-huh. I
Simply
haven't
because
I
she had
haven't Yeah, I haven't listened to that stream in ages because it's just like a big bowl of word salad and then I want to fall asleep and I mean it used to be fun. It used to be fun when everyone would show up and fight
yeah.
and you know, the blood sports, but then that stopped and they made it boring. So yeah, no.
But the thing, okay, what I think might push it forward is Rob saying, well, you know, how are you going to make it okay for us? Because I was saying, well, if you support secular Quranism, then Islam would go mainstream, because once the laws of God are there, you would, you know, belief would follow, because, you know, not everybody was Muslim even after the Meccan Revolution, right? I mean, you know, Muhammad
Yeah.
just you know, managed to militarily take it over, but not everybody agreed, you know, was a Muslim. But I guess the laws he had were fair enough that they didn't go crazy and rebel, and, you know,
Yeah.
and so it just managed to
They
carry on because the laws were fair enough.
But you know, it's gonna be tough because the media has done a hell of a job demonizing the religion, showing the worst side of it, the war-torn countries and everything, but not showing the reason why they're like that. Oh, it's just these Muslims, all they know how to do is fight and blah blah blah. You know, that's basically. And now everyone thinks like they had some idiot in your chat the other day. He was like, um he was saying something like, oh, Islam, when I went to Iraq, um there was a man selling his wife as a prostitute. Okay, yeah, that goes on everywhere where
Mhm.
there's poverty, where there's war. It has nothing to do with the religion. That is strictly forbidden in the religion. You can't do that.
Mhm.
This is what Islam is about, selling your wife as a prostitute. And he was saying all of these other ridiculous things. And I mean, and a majority of the United States, they actually believe things like this, you know. Um, so it's gonna be tough to try to get people to listen to it and realize it's not what what
Yeah.
what CNN says and what stupid guy in the chat says who, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah, and also how big is Rob's audience? Does he have a large following?
Not very big, but there are other people, who participate in I don't know, modern day debate, and the quality is getting quite good. I mean, that Daniel Hagikaju is actually, well, an excellent debater. Whatever you think of his, views about this or that. I think, he's basically just concentrating on the things that people can't deny about, the decay of the civilization and, morals and whatever. And he's just talking about that. I mean, that's enough. I mean, all this thing about, executing apostates and not letting women be educated. I mean, he's keeping that in the background. And I guess I'm not too worried about it because, really, once they just do decide to adopt the idea, everything will be subject to negotiation anyway, and nobody will get complete control over the interpretation anyway.
But you see, Daniel strikes me as the type of person who would want to force belief on people, and you can't do that. So I'm not sure if he is the best person to present the idea that you're trying to push forward. Maybe I don't think Rob, from what I've seen him on Twitter, that he would be the type of person to try to force belief. But that guy Daniel, he seems kind of extreme to me. I'm sorry.
He is pretty hard. I know he is pretty hardline. But I mean, the quality of his videos is quite impressive. Particularly on the subject of idolatry. I mean, he certainly surpasses anything rabbis have come up with, because they couldn't really say much about idolatry because they were too scared to say, anything about Christianity. But what you were saying earlier about Muslims not really believing in God and not the afterlife. I mean, lots of people like Jay pretend to be Christian, but if you ask them more closely, like, what do you think is going to happen after you are dead? He'll say, nothing. So it's obvious that I mean, you can actually find out who actually believes in God and who doesn't, and if they did believe in God, then they wouldn't be afraid to do what their religious principles say they should do, And there's so many vested interests. I mean, like the rabbis, it's sort of, you talk to them, and some of them are even afraid to read the Quran. It's like I spoke to this Chabad rabbi, and he said, I haven't read it. It's enough that I can get a Noahide to read it on my behalf. And I said, well, why don't you just read it? And it's like, it's almost as if I'm not supposed to be warned not to do it, because I think they're afraid to read it because, what they don't want is to lose Jews to Islam.
Yeah, wasn't that the fishmonger or whatever, that guy? Yes, yeah, he was terrible. That voice of his, oh my God. And you had sent me the link of him the other day. I couldn't listen. I had to turn the stream off. Screaming and walking back and forth. He was horrible.
I can't listen either. But I mean, the thing that I've noticed is that it's sort of they kind of realize that they need to have a few rabbis and who deal with Gentiles. And I bet a lot of these rabbis say, no, please don't make me, and or whatever. And I think it's the kind of not so clever rabbis who are kind of given the job of dealing with Gentiles, and Kaufman is one of them, I think.
Mr. Hat, why don't you join the stream? Come on.
Has he insulted?
And Jay, you can leave if you want. If you don't like it, go find another stream. I have about 10 things going on around me right now. If you can't hear the background, huh? I'm not just sitting in the chat bubbling away, insulting people right now. I'm speaking to somebody, and I have other things going on around me, huh? So come on, go, or come on, whatever you want to do. Yalla, come on, get up here.
I'd rather have you all to myself, Amanda.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, like, what is this? He's in the stream. He's like, Oh, Miss that woman. Let me see. I have to brighten my phone right now. What is it, Mama? What is it? What's going on? Okay. He's like, oh, from that woman paraphrasing a total midwit or something like that. Wait, just get out of here. Come on. Go do something else. All right. I get so sick of these people sometimes.
I ignore them.
Yeah.
But well, the part of the show, I think, you know.
Well,
like,
they are, but you know, sometimes they act like they're 10.
They are. I mean, this is the problem. It's like these so-called wet adult men think like children.
Yeah.
You know, they expect women to come and clear up the mess and change their nappy or something while they suck their thumbs. So, you know, what can you do? I mean, you know, this is the danger when men are so infantilized. But
you know, Jay, 3 years later, is still in the chat pressing numbers. Press 1 if you want a better group. Press 1 if you want a better group. Okay, go. If you don't like it, go find someone else to listen to.
But you know what Rob said. I guess what he was challenging me to do was you know, what can secular Quranism do for us? You know, poor white converts who everybody hates. You know, just we can't even, you know, we're lower than Muslim immigrants because our own community have rejected us. And which is basically what he's saying. That's why he's talking about safe spaces for white Muslim converts, you know? And I thought, well, I mean, talking like that would just make everybody go, oh, we don't want to become Muslim then if it means being like that.
I will tell you something. It has maybe part of it has to do with them being converts or whatever, but everyone in those so-called communities treat each other terribly, talk about each other, say mean things to each other, backstab. They do all sorts of things. Even if they were born into it, it may be worse. They just don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people avoid those places. They don't go. It's no different from some of the churches, you know, that people go to. I'm sure you know what goes on in the little church community, the backbiting and the nitpicking and the gossip and the judgment. And I think it may be worse for the people who were born Muslim than some of the converts. Or maybe the problems are equal but different. You know, like maybe the converts deal with these problems and the people who were born Muslim deal with this or that. But there's a lot of nonsense, and it's best just to avoid those places.
Yeah, because I mean, it's actually even in the Quran. It's like, you know, it warns against backbiting, which just means that, you know, people of all ages love to gossip and, you know, talk about each other. So you know, things are no different. And really, I think for white converts, if they would just, you know, agree to take the intermediate step before they actually convert, and the intermediate step would be to, you know, become a secular Quranist. Because if you know, okay, well, the situation I can imagine is that they're terrified of telling mom and dad who hate Muslims that they're going to be Muslim. So you know, that is the immediate problem, I imagine, and so. If you take the intermediate step, it would be, well, mum and dad, I'm thinking of becoming a secular Quranist. And then mum and dad would say, what's that? It doesn't sound like, you know, anything nice, but, you know, what is it? And then there would be some kind of dialogue emerging. But, you know, and you sort of leave yourself room for maneuver. You don't have to, you know, dress like a Muslim or avoid pork. You can still go to bars. I don't know, just do whatever precautions you need. And then you have room for maneuver, and you are able to, you know, talk to people without being compromised the moment you're seen eating a ham sandwich or drinking a glass of beer, perhaps. You know, but perhaps that's what, you know, people fear. And maybe when I think of John Vance, you know, I mean, I was determined to be neutral, I thought to myself, he's going to find it more difficult after converting to Islam than before, because I thought, before he was just winning all the arguments with secular Quranism, and everybody hated him because he won all the arguments and wouldn't even let him on. But he easily won the arguments. But after that, I think what he did was mention to his new Muslim community this thing called secular Quranism, and I bet they told him, you better not mention it here again. Or you'll be out of here, because I can imagine them saying something like that to him, and that I guess that was the end of that.
Yeah, well, John Vance went to like one of the most extremist places. I looked it up. I'm sorry. He, I remember that the one that he had showed some Egyptian guy that he said was the imam or the sheikh at the place. And he seemed okay, but there was this other guy involved, and he was educated in India, in the same place as quite a few people who had pulled off some terrorist attacks.
Oh,
yeah. And I messaged him before he and I had a fight. I messaged him. I was like, maybe you should try to find another place. Maybe explore other places. But apparently that was the only one around. So that's where he went. And I don't know where he is now or what he's doing.
Well, he's still got his channel, but yeah, I think he's deleted all his Muslim videos. So I guess he's no longer even Muslim now, right?
Yeah.
So, but I remember, there was a time when he had this moral clarity, when everything he said worked. His arguments were clear, and then after that, he was just sort of. This is nothing to do with Islam, even. I mean, it was just that he would just not make much sense, And then the thing he started to do was to read the New Testament when he was upset about something. And I thought, well, you shouldn't be doing that if you're Muslim. You should be reading the Quran for comfort, not the New Testament. But I guess people, go back to what they know and feel familiar with.
Maybe it was overwhelming for him. I guess that's the only thing I can think.
Yeah. I'm sure it was, because once you have been rejected by your Islamophobic community, and then you go to your new Muslim community, and they you can't face being rejected by them too, so you stick with it or something. I mean, I imagine that would be the situation.
Yeah. So I did. I told you I wasn't subscribed to him, but I on my old channel I was subscribed to him, and I filed an appeal, and I got my old channel back, and he had popped up on my feed, and I think he did stream not long ago, but I didn't look at what he was doing. There was something weird up there, but I'm gonna have to go check out what he's doing right now and see what's going on with him.
Okay.
And I wonder if he still talks to that ego dick guy. That guy was crazy.
I seem to remember him making, some sense. I know the most shocking thing he said was if their women got raped, they would deserve it. That was, well, I thought, well, that's a kind of opinion that isn't going to be popular. But
no, Claire, he wanted to participate. It wasn't just like I was reading these comments. He was like, he wanted a war or whatever to break out, and then he was going to go participate in this. He wanted to do it. He wanted to do these things. He wasn't just saying like, oh, they deserved it. He wasn't saying, which is horrible anyway, but he
I talk about John Vance or Ego Dick.
Ego Dick. He wanted to join in.
Well, I suspect most young men kind of want to do that sort of thing. Women and booty. I don't know. I mean, I suppose if the opportunity presented itself, they would, and maybe some of them join the army for that sort of thing. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, I remember, it was John sort of thinking aloud. I remember him saying it was a subject of rape, and then he was thinking, I wonder if it could be, possible to make it okay for men to rape women, to make it legal for them. And then he thought about it a bit more, and then he realized it was impossible because, obviously, if you were a man and you had a woman, you wouldn't like it to be legal for other men to rape your women,
Well, yeah, no, and you have to think, even if you're not married, you have to remember, like, would I want someone to do that to my mother? Would I want someone to do that to my sisters? Everyone will say no.
Yeah.
So
it's like theft, it's like, yeah, it'd be great if I could just steal anybody's property, but if others could do that to me, I wouldn't like it,
yeah,
But-
yeah, it's unfortunate that it does happen. Yeah.
Unfortunate and disappointing.
Well, my daughter is extremely jealous of me on the phone and streaming, and these strange voices going on. So I don't know if you've been hearing her in the background,
Yes,
and that's one of the reasons. Yeah, I think I need to go tend to her. It's getting late. She wants to
Okay.
sleep, and she's not going to go to sleep with me on the phone. So
All right.
it was nice talking to you.
Nice
Good night.
talking to you again, Amanda. Good night.
How do I turn this off?
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.